Chapter 356. Resurrection. On the port, Naz seemed to be celebrating something. He raised his hands and shouted loudly, attracting all the gazes around him. Noah. Immediately afterward, Naz seemed to remember something. He turned around abruptly and rushed toward Noah, who had just gotten off the ship. Let's settle this once and for all. Before this sentence had time to fall, a fist suddenly appeared above Naz's head. Like a heavy hammer, it fell on Naz's head fiercely. Bang! With a muffled sound, Naz's eyes protruded and his head was smoking. His whole body directly smashed on the ground, causing the ground to crack inch by inch. Noah, who withdrew his fist, passed by Naz, who was lying on the cracked ground, and walked forward expressionlessly. I knew you would do this. Sigh. Habby, who was suspended in the air, spread out his hands. Naz, didn't you see the duel between Noah and Elisha? Naz, you haven't been able to beat Elisha yet. Lucy also said angrily. You still dare to fight with someone who can tie with Elisha without using magic. I really don't know what to say about you. Gray threw such a sarcastic sentence coldly. What an idiot. As soon as the voice fell, Naz, who got up from the ground, put his head on Gray's head with a ferocious expression. Who are you calling an idiot? Droop your eyes. Gray didn't show any weakness and used his head to push back. He also had a ferocious expression. I'm talking about you. Hang your eyes. At this time, Elisha, who got off the ship, cast her indifferent gaze. What are you doing there? Nothing. Naz and Gray suddenly trembled together. The ferocious expression on their faces disappeared, and they made a standing posture. It seemed that they were scared of Elisha to death. That's good. Elisha nodded in satisfaction. Noah just happened to be back today, so don't cause any more trouble for me. Love. Naz and Gray responded in unison, but the way they responded sounded like hubby's catchphrase, which made Lucy speechless. Noah, who watched the scene unfold, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I thought that after 2 years all of you had grown, but in the end, you only grew in strength. You've changed a lot compared to 2 years ago. Elisha looked at Noah, tilted her head, and said in confusion. I feel like the atmosphere around you has changed compared to before. Does Elisha feel the same way? I thought I was the only one who felt that way. Gray scratched his head and looked at Noah with a puzzled expression. It feels like you're more dangerous than before? Hearing the words of Elisha and Gray, Noah just smiled and did not answer. Noah knows why Elisha and Gray feel this way. Because Noah has indeed changed, and the change is not small. In the world of Dark Bullet, he played with the politicians with superb means, and he also saw enough of the dark side of human nature. Coupled with the experience of Absolute Dual Blades and Night of the Mage, Noah has indeed changed compared to 2 years ago. If Noah 2 years ago could only be regarded as an extremely sharp sword that had just been sharpened, then now, Noah's sword has been stained with enough blood and is no longer a simple weapon. This is the so-called experience. This experience made Noah, who was originally more gentle, become stronger, and his heart was much tougher than before. In addition, the current Noah has a real murderous aura compared to 2 years ago. It's no wonder that Gray would say more dangerous. By the way, Noah, hubby, who flew to Noah's side, glanced at Noah's back and said suspiciously, Where's your sword? After hubby said this, Elisha, Naz and Gray remembered this matter. Of course the sword is put away. Noah replied perfunctorily, I learned a little trick similar to magic of disguise, which can store weapons in an invisible space. It's not gone, you can rest assured. The group of people was relieved. Well, let's rest in this town for the time being. Alyssa stepped forward and began to give orders, as if it was a matter of course. Tomorrow, we'll go back to Magnolia. Understood. Everyone responded in unison. At that moment, Naz leaped to Noah's front and gazed at him in excitement. He displayed a passionate smile on his face. Naz raised a hand, and a hot flame ignited on his fist, illuminating Naz's excited face. Noah, I've become a lot stronger in the past 2 years. Is that so? Noah met Naz's eyes that were filled with excitement. He raised his eyes and suddenly smiled. Then let me tell you, I haven't slacked off in the past 2 years, and I've become a lot stronger than 2 years ago. Didn't we agree at that time? The flame on Naz's hand became more and more violent, and his mood became more and more excited. When we meet again, we must decide the victor once more. No way. Hearing Naz's words, Lucy was speechless. You still want to fight? Naz, let's not fight. Habby quickly advised. Noah is very strong. Are you really an idiot? Even Gray couldn't help but scold him. Even Alusha can't defeat him. What else do you want? Isn't that good? Alusha held another opinion and looked at them with a smile. Naz has also become a lot stronger than 2 years ago, and he has always wanted to defeat Noah. Noah, give Naz a chance. Alusha. Lucy looked at Alusha in surprise. No way. Are we really going to fight? Compared to the astonished Lucy, Gray seemed to have understood what was going on and gave up on persuading her. Even Harpy lowered his head and stopped persuading her. Hey Happy. Lucy couldn't help but say. Are you really not going to persuade Naz? That's an opponent that even Alusha can't defeat. This is also something that can't be helped. Happy sighed. Naz has always wanted to defeat Noah from the beginning. In addition to finding Igoniel, Naz's biggest dream is to defeat Noah. So, even the president can't persuade such a Naz. It can't be, right? Lucy finally felt worried. We're all partners, don't be like this. Ignoring the discussions of his partners around him, Noah looked at Naz, who was staring at him with a persistent face, and after a while he smiled. Naz, don't be so anxious. Don't you think it's a bit of a waste if we duel now? Waste? Naz was stunned. You see, you all said that even Alusha can't do anything to me. But in fact, Alusha is an S-rank archmage, and I'm just an ordinary guild member. Noah smiled slightly. So Naz, why don't we postpone our duel until we both become S-rank archmages? Naz's eyes suddenly lit up. That's a good idea. Alusha nodded in agreement. Whether it's Noah or Naz, there is still room for growth. When they become S-rank archmages, they will definitely be stronger than now. When that time comes, if we duel again, it will definitely be more exciting than now. I think so too. Noah looked at Naz with a smile. Naz, what do you think? Let's do it this way. The stubborn Naz agreed without hesitation and laughed at the sky. Good. I'm already burning up. S-grade magic shooter. Gray seemed to be affected by Noah's words as well. He extended his fist at Noah. Don't forget, there's still me. Noah smiled and didn't say anything. He just extended his hand and bumped fists with Gray. Everything was said without words. Looking at the three boys like this, even Alusha and Lucy felt a little emotional. What should we do? Lucy bit her finger pitifully. I really want to join them. No, you can't, hubby said without hesitation. If it's Lucy, she will definitely not become an S-rank archmage. What are you talking about? Lucy muttered in dissatisfaction. I'm also very strong, okay? Alusha's gaze swept over Noah, Naz and Gray, and her heart was surprisingly gentle. The feelings between boys are really great. Chapter 357. After a blood-boiling agreement. In the next minute, Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Haby's mood dropped directly from the climax to the bottom because of Alusha's reminder. Noah only knew the reason for everyone's depression later. And he also knew why Alusha and her party appeared in the sea on a pirate ship. According to Alusha, the reason why they went to sea this time was entirely because Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Haby took the initiative to go out to perform an S-level mission. S-level mission? That's a super difficult mission that only S-level magic shooters are allowed to undertake. Those S-level missions were posted on the second floor of the guild. Since childhood, Makarov has repeatedly warned Noah, who lived on the third floor of the guild, not to go there. It can be imagined how much importance Makarov attached to these S-level missions. In the past, even if there was an S-level magic shooter who wanted to undertake an S-level mission, he must get the final consent of Makarov. Otherwise, even an S-level magic shooter can't undertake an S-level mission privately, and violators will be punished severely. The reason for this is very simple, because it's too dangerous. With Makarov's attention to the guild members, he naturally can't watch the members of the guild casually undertake such a dangerous mission and indirectly die. Therefore, in this regard, Makarov will set such strict requirements. This time, Naz and Habi tore down the S-level mission on the second floor without authorization and dragged Lucy to sea to perform such a dangerous mission. Makarov almost exploded with anger. What made Makarov so angry was that Gray was originally sent by him to bring Naz and others back. As a result, for various reasons, Gray also participated in this mission. Alusha, who returned to the guild after performing a mission outside, learned about this and went crazy on the spot. For Alusha, who doesn't know how to turn around, violating the rules of the guild is absolutely unforgivable. So, in order to catch up with Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Habi, Alusha directly hijacked a pirate ship and went to sea to pursue them. It seems that a lot of things happened in the middle because of this S-level mission. However, Alusha still found Naz and others without any danger, and they took the pirate ship that Alusha had hijacked before, intending to return to the guild. It seems that Alusha got along well with the pirates. The pirates also worshipped Alusha as big sister, which is why Alusha protected those pirates. After that, Alusha and others on the pirate ship met Noah, who had just returned. There is no doubt that except for Alusha, who is an S-level magic shooter, Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Habi will all be punished for taking on an S-level mission without authorization when they return this time. That's why Naz and others are so depressed. However, Noah feels that it is the greatest blessing to be able to come back safely. Although he doesn't know how dangerous the S-level mission is, Noah has been warned repeatedly by Makarov since he was a child, and he already has the impression that the S-level mission is directly linked to danger. Therefore, it's already very good that Naz and others can come back safe and sound. When Naz, Gray, and Habi escaped to the city to relax because of their low mood, Noah went to find a hotel with Alusha and Lucy. By the way, Alusha is also pulling a small car full of suitcases, at least a dozen or more. Is it necessary to bring so much luggage when you go out to perform a mission? In this regard, Noah has always wanted to complain since he was a child, but Alusha is still as stubborn as before. Even if she performs a small task, she will bring such a large car full of luggage. There are also some armors in the luggage that can't fit in the change space. They may be used, so it is absolutely necessary to bring them. This reason can't be said to be wrong. Therefore, Noah let Alusha do what she wants. Walking on the street to the reserved hotel, Noah, Lucy, and Alusha were chatting. Noah, Habi said that your magic is very, very powerful. Lucy doesn't seem to feel restrained in front of Noah anymore, and she asked Noah curiously, "What exactly is your magic?" "There is nothing to hide," Noah answered straightforwardly. "My magic is shatter. It is a magic that can shatter everything that comes into contact with my magic. Don't underestimate this magic, just because Noah answered so casually." Alusha said solemnly, "Crush is a real high-level destruction magic. In terms of destruction, there are almost no magic in the world that can compare to it. Compared to my change magic and Gray's shape magic, Noah's magic and Naz's magic are very rare. A high-level destruction magic as rare as Naz's magic." Lucy shrunk her neck slightly. "It is really powerful, that kind of magic. But its power is also as difficult to control as Naz's. If you are not careful, it can cause a lot of damage." Noah asked, "Then what is your magic?" "Me." Lucy untied a bunch of keys from her waist and raised it in front of Noah, and said with a little joy and pride, "My magic is Star Spirit magic." Star Spirit. Noah blinked and remembered. On the side of this world, there was a completely different space from this world. It was called Star Spirit World. And in this Star Spirit World lived a group of strange life forms. They were collectively called Star Spirits. The so-called Star Spirit magic referred to the magic that signed a contract with the Star Spirit of the Star Spirit World. Sorcerers used the key that could summon a certain Star Spirit in the Star Spirit World to sign a contract with the summoned Star Spirit. Once the contract was signed, the Star Spirit would serve the sorcerer as its nominal master. Then, the sorcerers of the Star Spirit could use the key as a medium in battle to summon the Star Spirit that they had signed a contract with from the Star Spirit World to help them in battle. Noah also accidentally saw this kind of summoning magic in a book. It was said that Star Spirit magic was a very ancient magic. In terms of age, it might be comparable to the dragon slayer magic that was born in ancient times. Summoning, Noah nodded thoughtfully. You do have a very interesting magic. Is that so? Lucy seemed to be very happy that Noah valued star spirit magic and nodded repeatedly. Noah, are you also interested in star spirit magic? A little. Noah unconsciously touched his arm. I also have a companion similar to star spirit that can be summoned to help me at any time. So I am quite interested in star spirit magic. Hearing this, even Alusha was curious. You also have a companion similar to star spirit that can be summoned to help you in battle? Yes. Noah smiled. If there is an opportunity in the future, I will introduce them to you. Wow. I didn't expect Noah to be the same type of sorcerer as me. Lucy smiled happily, then suddenly thought of something and took out a silver key from her bag. After hesitating for a moment, she reluctantly handed it to Noah. This is for you. This is... Noah subconsciously took it, held the silver key, and looked at Lucy in confusion. This is a star spirit key? This was bought in the shop not long ago. Because I already have the same type, I haven't signed a contract with it. Lucy gave Noah a cheerful smile. I will give it to you. You have to use it well. Is this okay? Noah frowned. For a star spirit sorcerer, the number of star spirits is directly related to their strength. It's okay. This is just a generic type that can be bought in the shop. Lucy explained. In this mission I got a very precious key. There are only 12 keys to the 12 zodiac gates in the world, so I can't give it to you. Is that so? Noah hesitated for a moment, then his expression relaxed. If that's the case, then I will accept it. Yes. Lucy pretended to nod. That's right. Seeing this, Noah laughed and shook his head. This newcomer is quite interesting. Chapter 358. The dazzling sunlight poured down like rain, shrouding the entire magnolia under the sun. Noah lifted his head and looked at the building that was abnormally bright under the sunlight, as well as the sparkling plaque. His emotions fluctuated uncontrollably. Fairy tale. It was now one of the strongest magic guide guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Compared to 2 years ago, the appearance of the guild had not changed at all, but there must have been a lot of changes inside Fairy Tale. The reason was that it was different from when Noah had just joined Fairy Tale. Now, Fairy Tale had more than 5 S-rank magic shooters, and below the S-rank magic shooters, people like Naz and Gray had all grown up. Noah's childhood playmates had also become the pillars of Fairy Tale. Coupled with the addition of potential talents like Lucy, Fairy Tale was now absolutely qualified to be called the strongest magic guide guild in the Fiori Kingdom. After returning after 2 years, Noah found that no matter how good his ability to control his emotions was, it was difficult to avoid the fluctuations in his mood at this moment. Because this was Noah's home. Alusha, Naz, Gray, Lucy, and Habi consciously stood aside and did not disturb Noah. Looking at Noah, who stood at the door for a long time without any movement, they only had an understanding smile on their faces. Even the silly Naz was the same. After a long time, Noah finally calmed down his emotions. Without looking back, he strode to the door of the guild, stretched out his hand, and pushed open the door of the guild. Hua! At this moment inside the guild, a wave of noise surged like a tide and drowned Noah. However, to Noah, this noise was too familiar, so familiar that he could not help but have the urge to smile. Like the noise, what appeared in front of Noah was a very familiar scene. The bar-like guild hall. The innermost bar. The commission board with the commission orders posted, as well as those familiar or unfamiliar faces. Looking at all this, Noah's mouth unconsciously curved up. He lifted his feet and walked step by step into the guild. Finally, someone noticed Noah and seemed to recognize Noah. They were stunned. As Noah's footsteps echoed inside the guild members also seemed to feel something and looked in the direction of Noah. Then, without exception, they were all stunned. Only the newcomers who had joined Fairy Tale in the past 2 years were at a loss, but they also noticed that the atmosphere was not right, so they obediently shut their mouths. Not long after, the noisy guild was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Clang! It was also at this time that an extremely loud and ear-piercing sound was heard. It was the sound of something made of metal hitting the ground. Noah directly turned his gaze to the source of the sound. Over there, a young lady with short white hair that reached her shoulders, wearing a woolen sweater and shorts, and an extremely graceful figure, was staring at Noah in a daze. Beneath her feet, a tray was rolling. Without a doubt, it had fallen from the young lady's hands. Seeing this girl, Noah did not know how to describe his feelings at this moment. Excited? Should be, right? But that was much more complicated than being excited. After all, it was not the first time Noah returned to the guild after such a long time. Suppressing the emotions in his heart, he came in front of the girl who was staring blankly at him, bent down, picked up the tray that fell on the ground, and put it back in the hands of the girl. Can't even hold the tray properly? Looking into the silly eyes of the girl, Noah reached out his hand and lightly scratched her small nose. Then I'll have to consider whether I should let you cook a meal to celebrate my return, Lisanna. As soon as this sentence came out, it seemed to have awakened everyone present. Finally, everyone present reacted to the situation. After rubbing his eyes and confirming that the one standing in front of her was Noah, all the people who knew Noah blushed. Oh. In the next second, shocking cheers resounded throughout the entire guild. The cheers were only for one person. Yes, just for one person. For Noah. Big brother Noah. Lisanna threw herself into Noah's arms without hesitation. Noah, a short distance away, a group of old guild members, who had known Noah since he was a child, jumped up and pounced on Noah, giving Noah a fright. Just as Noah was about to be drowned out by the crowd, an old but extremely powerful voice sounded. All of you stop. A bunch of idiots. Like a paralyzing curse, the cheers of the entire guild came to an abrupt halt. Those who were pouncing on Noah froze on the spot, but the excitement on their faces didn't subside in the slightest. Under such circumstances, a short old man with a walking stick slowly walked out of the crowd. His eyes were fixed on Noah, and did not move away for a moment. Grandpa. Noah, who was hugging the equally excited Lisanna, turned his head and looked at Makarov, his dark eyes rippling slightly. Compared to the excited guild members around him, Makarov didn't have the slightest bit of emotion on his face. Instead, he had a peaceful expression, as if he was looking at a child returning home. You're back? Noah nodded heavily in response. I'm back. A smile gradually appeared on Makarov's face, and soon it turned into a laugh that almost covered his entire face. The banquet is starting. Oh. Deafening cheers once again resounded throughout Fairy Tale. Looking at the cheering guild members in front of him and Makarov, who was laughing cheerfully to hide his emotions, Noah glanced at Alyssa and the others standing at the entrance of the guild with smiles on their faces. Feeling the soft touch of Lisanna in his arms, something in his heart seemed to melt. At this moment, there was only one sentence left in Noah's heart. True enough. This is my home. Big brother Noah. Big brother Noah. Big brother Noah. Tightly hugging Noah, Lisanna seemed to be afraid that if she let go, Noah would disappear. Not only did she tighten her grip bit by bit, she also constantly muttered Noah's name, causing Noah to bitterly smile. 2 years had passed, and Lisanna had changed slightly more than the others. After all, these 2 years belonged to Lisanna's growth period. Not only did the 17-year-old Lisanna not lose her previous cuteness, but she also had a hint of a mature woman. Not only did her figure become more curvaceous, but the curves of her delicate body were also more beautiful than before. The 2 shining white thighs that were exposed outside of her shorts almost shocked Noah's eyes, causing Noah to feel more than once that a woman changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Of course, these were not the biggest changes. The biggest change in Lisanna's body was undoubtedly the impressive growth of her chest. Because Lisanna had been tightly hugging Noah, Noah constantly felt the full and round feeling in his arms, causing him to sigh. All right, Lisanna. Without any other choice, Noah could only pat Lisanna's little head and bitterly smile as he comforted her. This is not a dream, nor is it an illusion. I'm right here. I won't suddenly disappear. I don't care. Lisanna didn't know if it was because she missed Noah after not seeing him for so long, or because she was complaining that Noah hadn't returned for so long. But she stubbornly shouted, "I just want to hug you. I just want to hug you. All right, all right, all right. Hug me, hug me." Noah had no choice but to compromise and roll his eyes. "You can hug me for as long as you want. That's fine, right?" As soon as he said that, a bell-like laughter rang out in front of Noah. "These past 2 years, Lisanna has always wanted to reunite with you. Noah, just let Lisanna be stubborn for once." Hearing this voice, Noah was startled and raised his head to look ahead. However, the scene that entered his eyes not only didn't dispel Noah's shock, but instead made it even more intense. Chapter 359. Hee. With a sweet smile that could intoxicate any man, the beautiful young lady stood in front of Noah with her hands behind her back. She bent her delicate body forward and stared at Noah with a pair of gentle eyes that could melt one's heart. Strange ripples undulated in her heart. She was a beautiful girl who was flawless no matter how one looked at her. The young lady was wearing a princess dress that was not luxurious, but appeared to be very elegant. Her waist-length white hair was spread out like snow on her soft and beautiful back. Her figure was tall and full, just like a model that had walked out of a book. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating. And from the girl, Noah could feel a gentle temperament like water. That temperament of a saintess touched Noah, and his eyes couldn't help but stay on the other party. Noah had seen many super beautiful girls with both beauty and temperament. For example, the sacred and inviolable Son of Heaven. For example, the innocent and lovely Julie. For example, the dazzling and confident Lilith. In addition, there was Aoko, who was brimming with heroic spirit and incomparably strong will, and Yuju, who was like a fairy tale princess. These beautiful girls, whether it was appearance or temperament, were far superior to ordinary people. Noah's eyes had long been spoiled, and now, in Noah's view, the girl standing in front of him now, whether it was appearance or temperament, didn't lose to anyone Noah had seen before. This wasn't the main reason why she attracted Noah's attention. The real reason why Noah couldn't help but cast his gaze over and was stunned on the spot, unable to react for a long time, was that he felt a familiar aura from the girl in front of him. However, in Noah's impression, although the owner of this aura was indeed as beautiful as a flower, it was absolutely impossible for her to be so soft and gentle like water. She was like the Virgin Mary, touching the heart of others all the time. What was going on here? Noah could only hesitate and use an extremely uncertain tone to call out tentatively, "Mira, what's the matter?" The girl named Mira looked at Noah with a smile. "You don't recognize me?" When Noah heard this sentence that was equivalent to an admission, he was stunned on the spot without any surprise. "Mira? It's really Mira? The elder sister of Elfman and Lisanna? The delinquent girl who fought with Alusha all day long? The magic shooter, who became an S-ranked magic shooter at the age of 16? The Mira Jenny who used demon souls as a means of battle?" Looking at the girl who was smiling at him with an extremely gentle and sweet smile, Noah felt as though his worldview had been impacted. No matter what, he couldn't overlap the girl in front of him with the girl in front of him. Driven by such feelings, Noah could not help but reach out his hand and caress Mila's cheek in a silly manner. "Are you really Mira?" If it was the Mira that Noah knew, she would definitely blush when Noah touched her face like that. Then, she would fly into a rage out of humiliation and throw a punch at Noah's face. Moreover, she would definitely not show any mercy. However, the Mira in front of him seemed to be determined to destroy Noah's impression of her. When she felt Noah's hand caressing her cheek, she actually reached out and placed her hand on the back of Noah's hand. She closed her eyes and cupped it, as though she was very warm and nostalgic. The expression on her face was so gentle that it could make one go weak on the ground. Looking at Mira like this, Noah completely forgot to react for a moment. He felt as though his heart was about to be captured by this gentle girl in front of him, and he was immersed in her bit by bit. Just as Noah was about to be unable to resist Mira's gentleness, a cold snort sounded. At the same time, Noah felt someone pinch his waist. Ouch! This pinch caused Noah to cry out in pain. At the same time, Noah finally came to his senses and hurriedly retracted his hand with an awkward expression on his face. Haha. Mira smiled knowingly at Noah's reaction. Big brother Noah. At some point, Lisanna lifted her head from Noah's embrace and glared at Noah with resentment. I know big sister Mira is very charming, but you should come back to your senses. Your eyeballs are about to fall to the ground. What are you talking about? Noah felt even more awkward and could only pinch Lisanna's cheeks and pull. I'm just surprised. Wah. Lisanna wriggled her cheeks unwillingly and looked as though she wouldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. But to be honest, Noah was indeed very surprised. Although people changed, could the once violent Mira really become so gentle and elegant in just 2 years? But on second thought, Noah felt that it was only natural. After breaking free from Noah's grip, Lisanna looked at the relieved expression on Noah's face and asked curiously, Big brother Noah, aren't you curious about big sister Myra's change? That's a change that even surprised us. Mira also looked at Noah with a smile, as though she was enjoying Noah's surprise. Although I'm a little surprised, I don't find it strange, Noah said as he scratched his cheeks in front of the two sisters. After all, the Mira I know isn't a bad girl, but she became strong in order to protect her younger siblings. Isn't it natural for such a gentle person to become even more gentle for someone? Hearing this, Mira was stunned for a moment. Then, she looked at Noah with a gentler gaze. That's true. Lisanna nodded. Big sister Mira has always been gentle. Now that she's become even more gentle for someone, it's not strange at all. Lisanna stared at Noah angrily and emphasized the word someone, causing Noah to be confused. Why are you looking at me like you're looking at a criminal? It's not like she's become so gentle because of me, right? That's what someone is thinking. At this moment, a rough voice sounded in Noah's ears. Big sister isn't the only one who's changed, Noah. A dark-skinned muscular man appeared behind Mira and entered Noah's sight. He laughed loudly at Noah. Long time no see, Noah. Elfman? Noah was surprised. I thought you went out to work. Noah, I saw you, big sister, and Lisanna catching up with each other here, so I didn't want to disturb you. Elfman raised his thick arm and patted his elbow. How is it? I've become more manly, haven't I? It should be said that you've become more violent. The one who said this was a girl sitting at a table nearby, hugging a large wine barrel and smiling drunkenly at Noah. Yo Noah, long time no see. Karna? You're here too? Noah's eyes lit up, but when he saw the large wine barrel in Karna's arms, he smiled helplessly. You haven't changed much compared to 2 years ago. Is that so? I feel that my alcohol tolerance has increased a lot. Karna let out a burp as she grinned from ear to ear. You've also become more manly than before. Noah, do you want to date me? Lisanna, who had a strong reaction to this sentence, glared at Karna with dissatisfaction. Please don't joke like this. Oh. Karna laughed mischievously. I'm not joking. Karna. Mira puffed up her cheeks and preached to Karna. You can't bully Lisanna too much. Yes. Karna laughed heartily as she picked up the wine barrel and began to gulp down the wine. Her domineering drinking style made Elfman take a few steps back. Looking at his childhood friends who had changed or not, Noah revealed a sincere smile. Noah, Alusha, Naz, Gray, Lucy, Hubby, and the others, who were sitting at the largest table in the middle of the guild, waved at Noah and shouted, Come over quickly. Noah, Mira, Lisanna, and the others looked at each other with a smile, got up, and walked forward. Today the cheers and noise lasted all day. Chapter 360. Until the sun set in the west, the noise and cheers that had been ringing in Fairy Tale for an entire day gradually died down, allowing the guild to regain its tranquility. Few outsiders knew that today, none of the magic shooters in the Fairy Tale Guild went out to work, but instead held a banquet for the entire day. The main character of the banquet was naturally Noah. Under the support of his companions, Noah spent the day in a noisy atmosphere. It wasn't until the evening that he heaved a sigh of relief after the departure of his guild members. But today, the smile on Noah's face never disappeared, and the number of times he smiled was more than any other day in the past 2 years. His mood was unprecedentedly relaxed all day long, and even Noah himself felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Only after Alusha, Naz, Gray, Lucy and the others left the guild did Noah have the time to report to Makarov, who hadn't disturbed him and his friends from reminiscing about the past 2 years. Of course, even if Makarov was his grandfather, he couldn't casually talk about going to other worlds to retrieve world fragments. It wasn't that Noah was afraid of Makarov going out and talking nonsense, but even Noah himself felt that his experience wasn't something an ordinary person could have. Even now, he had a kind of illusory feeling of whether or not he was dreaming, let alone Makarov. Thus, after hiding the matter of between worlds, world fragments and his travels in various worlds, Noah chose to talk about his own experiences. The general situation was that while Noah was receiving Mavis guidance on Heavenly Wolf Island, he was also being instructed by Mavis to travel around the world and experience all kinds of things, using it as training to improve his own strength. Truly worthy of being called a first-generation talent. She knew that you wouldn't improve much if you only stayed on Heavenly Wolf Island to train, so she let you go out to increase your knowledge and experience, train yourself, and improve yourself. Makarov sighed from the bottom of his heart. If you're only allowed to receive guidance on Heavenly Wolf Island for 2 years, your growth won't be as fast as training outside, right? Hearing Makarov's words of admiration for Mavis, Noah inwardly apologized. However, there was no other way. Noah's experience could only be described in this way. Otherwise, it would be too far-fetched. Even if Makarov was willing to believe it, he probably wouldn't agree to let him go to another world if he knew about it. Even if he has already passed away, the first generation has always been paying attention to the fairy tale and protecting us. Sitting at the bar, Makarov looked at the street outside the door, his old face full of determination. That's why we have to protect fairy tale no matter what. Absolutely. Hearing this, Noah nodded heavily. Although he didn't know whether Mavis was really always watching over fairy tale, Noah and Makarov had the same feelings. No matter what, this family had to be protected. This was absolutely necessary. The current you is definitely stronger than before. I can no longer feel any trace of magic on your body. It seems that you are no longer at a level where I can casually see through your strength. Makarov turned his gaze to Noah, looking at the grandson he was most proud of, and smiled with gratification. Although I knew from when you were young that you would surpass me one day, I didn't think that this day would come so soon. Grandfather, please don't say that, Noah hurriedly said. If it's grandfather, you will definitely be stronger than me. It's fine even if you don't say such words to comfort me. I won't feel disappointed just because my grandson has grown so much. In fact, I will be very happy. Makarov laughed, but after laughing, his expression turned serious. You are the same as your brother. Both of you are growing at an astonishing speed. Now, I don't even know if I am a match for you. Hearing this sentence, the expression on Noah's face also converged little by little. Compared to you, Laxus really makes me feel uneasy. Makarov sighed. That child's heart is already filled with power. To him, only power is everything. He doesn't have the same dedication to the guild and his companions as you do. I am really worried that if he does something wrong in the future, will I be able to stop him? Saying this, Makarov's wrinkled eyes showed deep worry. Noah knew that Makarov's worries were not superfluous. With Laxus's personality, it was really possible for him to do something crazy. However, Noah did not agree with Makarov's understanding of Laxus. Makarov felt that Laxus did not attach much importance to the guild and his companions. In fact, Noah knew that this matter was the exact opposite. Perhaps Laxus did not have much of a sense of belonging to his companions in fairy tale. But Laxus definitely cared more about the guild than Makarov imagined. He had known Laxus for a long time. Makarov was too worried about Laxus's future, so he did not see through Laxus's heart. However, Noah had long noticed the dedication in Laxus's heart to the guild. It was just that this stubbornness was slightly distorted, which had resulted in the current Laxus. Grandpa, don't worry, Noah said faintly. If Laxus doesn't do anything, then it's fine. If he does, then I will deal with it. When he said this, although Noah's tone was very indifferent, Makarov felt a great amount of pressure from it. Makarov looked at Noah, who was emitting a terrifying aura, with some surprise. He finally understood. Perhaps this grandson of his was stronger than he imagined. Perhaps Noah had really become stronger than him. Realizing this, Makarov fixed his gaze on Noah. After a long time, he revealed a relieved smile. Then I'll leave it to you. Noah nodded his head heavily once again, and his heart was filled with excitement. Raxus, I hope you don't disappoint Grandpa. Otherwise this time, I won't be like before stopping here. When night fell, Makarov also left the guild, leaving the guild in a deathly stillness. Noah returned to his own room. Compared to 2 years ago, the room hadn't changed at all. He touched the table and wardrobe. When he felt that there wasn't even a speck of dust on them, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. Noah didn't need to confirm with anyone, and he could guess who was the one who cleaned up his room during the 2 years that he wasn't in the guild and kept his room free of dust. Who else could it be apart from her? Of course, Noah didn't know that he had only guessed half of it. In these 2 years apart from Lisanna, Mira also came to clean Noah's room almost every day. She kept Noah's room almost exactly the same as it was 2 years ago. Lying on the bed that was obviously washed and changed, Noah held a magazine and flipped through it. In this magazine, whether it was the cover or the bottom page, there were all kinds of fashion photos of Mira in the most conspicuous places. Noah only found out today. Since Noah left, almost the next day, Mira no longer went out to work as a magic shooter. Instead, she completely changed her appearance. Not only did she become the most fashionable cover girl, but she also became the signature girl of Fairy Tale. Thanks to this, Mira's fame was now known throughout the Fiori Kingdom. Her popularity was so high that there wasn't a single man who didn't fall head over heels for her. However, because of this, the Strauss siblings' team disbanded. Like Mira, Lisanna didn't take on any missions for 2 years. Instead, she worked as a waitress in Fairy Tale. Only Elfman was still active as a magic shooter. That's amazing. Looking at the various cute and beautiful photos of Mira in the magazine, Noah could only sigh. Mira has changed a lot. At this moment, a knock sounded on the door. Big brother Noah, are you there? Chapter 361. Big brother Noah, are you there? Following this sentence, there was a knock on the door. Noah had just retracted his gaze from the magazine in his hand when the person standing outside pushed the door open. Not long after, Lisanna's head popped in and entered Noah's sight. I'm coming in. Lisanna didn't have any intention of asking for Noah's permission. She walked straight into Noah's room and closed the door behind her. Perhaps it was because she had just taken a shower, but the moment she entered the room, a fragrant scent filled the room. Her beautiful white hair was stained with water droplets, proving that she had just taken a shower. She was still wearing a woolen sweater and shorts. Her impressive bosom was extremely prominent, and her 2 white thighs were dangling in the air. It was extremely eye-catching. This made Noah sigh in his heart. Not only Mira, but even this little sister of the Strauss family had changed a lot. At the very least, her every move was truly attractive. In other words, she had grown up. She had grown up in all aspects. Just like how Noah paid attention to Lisanna, Lisanna also paid attention to Noah the moment she entered the room. Compared to 2 years ago, Noah's appearance hadn't changed much, but his temperament had changed a lot. From Lisanna's point of view, her big brother Noah had become more manly than before. However, when Lisanna saw the magazine with Mira's photo on the cover in Noah's hand, her cheeks suddenly puffed up, and she became angry. What's wrong? Seeing Lisanna's angry expression, Noah couldn't help but laugh. It's already so late, why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing here? Big brother Noah, do you not want to see me? Lisanna said as if she was throwing a tantrum. Anyway, I'm not as charming as big sister Mira. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but smile and tease Lisanna. What? Could it be that you're jealous of your own sister? No, I'm just telling the truth. I'm not jealous of Sister Mira. Lisanna walked to the bedside and looked straight at Noah with her hands on her hips. After all, in order to attract someone's attention, I know how hard Sister Mira worked for the past 2 years. Now that she finally succeeded, I won't be jealous. Hearing this, Noah was stunned. When he connected the dots between her gaze and the content of her words, he was speechless. Noah wasn't an idiot. If he still couldn't understand what she meant, then it would have been a waste of his efforts to create a fairy tale in the world of Pitch Black Bullet. Hence, Noah could only ask cautiously, "The someone you're talking about, don't tell me it's me?" "I say, big brother Noah, you can't say this to big sister Mira. Otherwise I won't forgive you," Lisanna complained to Noah. "Have you forgotten what you said to big sister Mira before you left the guild?" "Before I left the guild?" Noah immediately searched through his memories. After a while he revealed a stunned expression. Before leaving the guild, Noah had indeed said something to Mira. "I hope that when I return, you'll become gentler." Could it be that because of this sentence, Mira had such a change? It can't be, right? "Didn't I already tell you, big brother Noah?" Lisanna seemed to have seen Noah's disbelief and was rather indignant. "After you left, big sister Mira began to change the next day. She no longer went out to work as a magic shooter. Listen carefully, it was after you left." Of course, Noah understood what Lisanna was trying to say. After Noah left, Mira changed. And before Noah left, he had said those words to Mira. In that case, wasn't it obvious who Mira had changed for? It was just that Noah subconsciously avoided the possibility that he was the cause of Mira's change, so he didn't make such an obvious connection. Even everyone in the guild knows who caused big sister Mira to change for big brother Noah. Lisanna puffed up her cheeks. Now everyone can see big sister Mira's feelings. If you still don't admit it, you'll be torn to pieces by those boys who have been infatuated with big sister Mira for the past 2 years. Noah laughed bitterly, and it was a bitter laugh that was rather complicated. Even Mira had such feelings for him? Then, in addition to Elysian who had confessed to him, and Lisanna who had shown obvious affection for him, he seemed to have unknowingly committed a lot of sins. Of course, Noah definitely didn't know that his sins were far deeper than he thought. "Hey big brother Noah." Lisanna's tone seemed to have become rather complicated. "Big sister Mira has changed so much for you, so please don't make big sister Mira sad." "Is that so?" Noah suppressed the various emotions in his heart and rolled his eyes at Lisanna. "In other words, you want me to be your brother-in-law?" Lisanna's expression suddenly became conflicted. With Lisanna's feelings for Mira, of course she didn't want to see Noah betray Mira's feelings. But then, was she going to give up on Noah, who she had always liked since she was young? In that case, it would be Lisanna's turn to be heartbroken. "I don't care." Lisanna couldn't think of a reason, so she could only be willful. "No matter if it's me or big sister Mira, you can't make us sad." "What does that mean?" Noah was astonished. "I can't make both of you sad? Do you mean that I have to accept both of you? Accept both sisters? Let's not talk about whether Mira and Lisanna would agree or not. If they really did that, then what about the 3-year agreement between Noah and Sage Tianzi? It had been almost a year since he left the Black Bullet. In another 2.5 years, Noah would have to return to the world of the Black Bullet. At that time, if Sage Tianzi didn't have that kind of feelings for Noah, then it would be fine. But if he still had that kind of attachment, then Noah had promised to give him an answer. This answer could also be a rejection. But to let a girl wait for 3 years only to be rejected, wasn't that too cruel? Besides, it wasn't that Noah didn't have any feelings for Sage Tianzi. It was just that he didn't have feelings for Mira and Lisanna, who had been with him since young. On the other side, after hearing Noah's words, Lisanna actually hesitated for a moment. But perhaps she felt that she shouldn't have hesitated like this, so she glared at Noah angrily. "In short, if you make Sister Mira sad, I definitely won't forgive you. If you make me sad, I definitely won't forgive you. You're practically giving me an unsolvable problem, aren't you?" Noah retorted. "Besides, even if I have the ability to protect both of you from harm, what about the others?" "Others?" Lisanna was stunned at first. When she realized what this sentence meant, her eyes widened, and she pointed at Noah in disbelief. Could it be that brother Noah has another woman outside? What you said is a little wrong, right?" Noah realized that he had said something wrong, so he braced himself and said, You're saying it as if I have another woman here. Perhaps this sentence angered Lisanna, but with a bang, Lisanna slammed the bed and cast a gloomy look at Noah. In other words, Brother Noah really has another sweetheart? What you said is a little wrong, right? Noah couldn't help but look away. Can't it be that there's another girl who likes me? Something like that? Noah's voice was getting weaker and weaker. This was because Lisanna's head was slowly lowering, and her face was buried in the shadow of her bangs, so no one could see her expression clearly. Noah subconsciously lowered his voice. Lisanna, Sister Mira, I can still bear it, Lisanna said as she suddenly raised her head, and a drop of tear hung in the corner of her eye. What other woman? I won't admit it. As soon as she finished speaking, Lisanna suddenly pounced forward and pushed Noah onto the bed. Lisanna, you. Before Noah could finish his sentence, he couldn't say anything else. This was because Lisanna lowered her head and blocked Noah's mouth with her own mouth. Chapter 362. By the time Noah reacted, a soft and fragrant tongue had already probed into Noah's mouth, which was slightly open due to his excessive surprise, and instantly tangled with Noah's tongue. That sweet touch was transmitted to Noah's nerves through the lips and tongue, causing Noah to involuntarily open his eyes wide. Looking at Lisanna, who was clumsily and unskillfully kissing him with her eyes closed, his heart was filled with astonishment. Noah didn't know that when he was young, he had already been secretly kissed by Mira and Lisanna. However, Noah wasn't inexperienced in kissing. Don't forget, in the world of the Night of the Magi, in order to provide magic power for Qingzi and Yuzhu to open up the blocked magic circuit, Noah had also forcefully kissed Qingzi and Yuzhu. But unlike Qingzi and Yuzhu, Lisanna's kiss had the greatest impact on Noah. After all, one was a childhood sweetheart who had grown up with him. The other was a cohabitant who lived together for benefits. The other was an uncontrollable emotion that took the initiative to kiss. And the other was an action that had to be done because of external factors. The difference between the two could be imagined. In addition, Noah had never thought that Lisanna would one day do such a bold thing, so it was easy to imagine how much astonishment he had in his heart. Woo! Chirp! And while Noah was still astonished, Lisanna seemed to be getting more and more familiar with the feeling of kissing. Her tongue nimbly entangled with Noah's tongue, and began to spit out scorching hot breaths. Even her cheeks were faintly rosy. The feeling of tongues entangling with each other was enough to make Noah dizzy. But what really made Noah's heart tremble was Lisanna's soft and delicate body. Her delicate body pressed down on Noah without the slightest gap, as if she didn't want to let Noah escape. Lisanna's pair of long legs that were exposed to the air unconsciously rubbed against Noah's legs. Her delicate body was also slightly trembling because of her overly bold behavior. The fullness of her chest squeezed Noah tightly. That sensation made Noah realize once again that she was no longer a child. It was also the culprit that caused Noah's mind to go blank for a moment. After a while, Noah finally reacted. He grabbed Lisanna's shoulder and pulled hard, pulling her lips away from his. Huff, huff, huff. Perhaps it was because she was too focused and hardworking, but Lisanna's cheeks were rosy and her eyes were misty. Her mouth panted, allowing her sweet breath to hit Noah's face, causing Noah's heart to waver. Lisanna, you. I don't care. Ignoring Noah's hesitation, Lisanna reached out and cupped Noah's face as she gazed at Noah with a dazed expression. Whether it's Sister Mira or any other woman, Big Brother Noah is mine. I won't give you away so easily. After saying that, without giving Noah a chance to reply, Lisanna panted and lowered her head, once again pressing her lips against his. Her tongue was as nimble as a small snake. In an instant, it drilled into Noah's mouth, kissing him without care. Feeling Lisanna's kiss that seemed to want to pour out all the feelings in her heart, Noah's heart trembled and trembled again. Although he was more or less aware of the feelings in Lisanna's heart, but Noah had never known this feeling. It was actually so dense. At the very most, how long had Noah and Lisanna been together? It was said that they were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. However, Noah joined Fairy Tale at the age of 10, and only went out to do missions at the age of 11, where he met the Strauss siblings. After that, In order to master crush magic, Noah left Fairy Tale for 4 years. After that, he went to another world and left Fairy Tale for 2 years. Thus, if one were to really count, Noah and Lysana had only been together for 2 years. 2 years of being together had caused such a young girl to be so infatuated with him? There was a difference of 4 years and 2 years in between. If it was a normal situation, even if he once liked someone, this feeling would gradually fade under the erosion of time, right? But Lysana's feelings were still so strong. Under the test of time, the feelings in one's heart would indeed fade. But there were also some that would grow stronger because of longing. Lysana was clearly the latter. That was why she could no longer endure it. Mira was clearly the latter. That was why she could change her appearance for Noah. All because of a casual sentence from Noah. At that moment, Noah finally realized how much weight he was shouldering. Just as Lysana said, no matter who was sad, Noah was not worthy of forgiveness. Apart from Mira and Lysana, it would be fine if the Elysian child in the other world no longer had feelings for Noah. But if she still had feelings for Noah after 3 years, then Noah could not let the girl who had waited for him for 3 years be sad. Was this responsibility not heavy enough? Under the influence of such emotions, Noah's heart melted. TSK. Noah no longer hesitated and began to respond to her kiss. Perhaps because she sensed the change in Noah's heart, this time, she took the initiative to part her lips and stared at Noah's face with her watery eyes. Big brother Noah. Lysana called out her sweetheart's name with infatuation. She suddenly straightened her body and reached for the hem of her clothes. With a series of rustling sounds, Lysana took off her top, exposing her fair skin to Noah's eyes. Noah only saw a patch of white entering his field of vision. Then a pair of round and full breasts bounced in front of his eyes. The captivating red that was like the finishing touch trembled slightly, causing Noah's heart to skip a beat. It was only at this moment that Noah finally noticed. Lysana did not wear underwear at all. Noah. Big brother. Lysana murmured Noah's name. Because of her shyness, she more or less covered her chest. But after a while, she put down her arms with trembling hands, revealing her delicate body in front of Noah. Even her voice was trembling. Don't keep staring. It's so embarrassing. This sentence was definitely from the bottom of her heart. In other words, Lysana was really embarrassed about being naked in front of Noah. But even so, Lysana still did not choose to avoid it, nor did she choose to hide. Instead, she boldly and bravely showed her beauty to her sweetheart. Was this not worthy of pity? In any case, Noah felt that at least for this minute, at this second, he was captivated by this brave girl in front of him. He no longer avoided her gaze, but his expression was very complicated. Is this really okay? There's nothing wrong with it. Lysana reached out and stroked Noah's cheek, her eyes shining with misty light. Other than big brother Noah, Lysana doesn't want anyone else. Saying this, Lysana directly hugged Noah, squeezing her pair of full breasts and moving her lips towards Noah. Please, big brother Noah, don't reject me. With that, Lysana turned all the feelings in her heart into practical action and gave the most passionate and intense kiss to Noah. And of course, what Lysana wanted to give to Noah was definitely not just a kiss. Thus, Noah found that his heart was beating vigorously for Lysana. At this moment, Noah's heart was also occupied by a thought. Want her. Don't want to reject her. No matter what, I can't reject her. I can't reject this girl who has given everything to me. Thus, the accumulated feelings in Noah's heart completely exploded. Ugh! As Lysana gasped, Noah tightly hugged her delicate body, turned, and pressed her under his body, pulled up the quilt and covered their bodies. Not long after, pieces of clothes began to fall to the ground. Until a certain moment, a cry of pain suddenly reverberated, igniting the night and causing the temperature in the air to rise slightly. The panting sound did not stop for a long time. Chapter 363. The next day, waking up from his sleep, the memories of last night suddenly surged into Noah's mind, causing Noah to be invigorated. The sleepiness in his body instantly disappeared without a trace. Hurriedly opening his eyes, Noah fiercely turned his head and looked to his side. Huff! Huff! In Noah's arms, Lisanna and Noah were covered under the same quilt. Her head was pillowed on Noah's arm, and her hands were tightly wrapped around Noah's neck. Her beautiful face was still slightly rosy, and there was still a teardrop hanging from the corner of her eyes. However, her expression was extremely peaceful, and she slept very soundly. Only Noah, who was tightly stuck to Lisanna, knew that under the quilt, not only Lisanna, but even he was in a state of being completely naked. Feeling the breathing of Lisanna in his arms, at this moment, Noah's heart did not have any ripples, only infinite pity, because for the entire night, the girl in his arms had been sacrificing herself, and was tormented by Noah for the entire night. Presumably, this girl must be exhausted now. She won't wake up until noon, or even at night, right? Rest well. Noah patted Lisanna's head in his arms with extreme pity, and then left a light kiss on Lisanna's smooth forehead. Then he tiptoed out of the quilt, picked up the clothes on the ground, and put them on neatly. Ugh! It was not known if it was because the loss of Noah's body temperature made Lisanna feel a little lost in her dream. Lisanna turned over, and her fair skin was exposed from the quilt that had slipped off, exposed to the air, while she murmured in her sleep, "Big brother Noah." Seeing this, Noah smiled knowingly and covered Lisanna's body with the quilt again. Then, he picked up the clothes that belonged to Lisanna on the ground and hung them on the clothes rack at the side. Then, he glanced at Lisanna's sleeping face and quietly walked out of the room. Kacha! Accompanied by the extremely soft sound of the door closing, the room that was covered in pink for the entire night returned to its usual silence and warmth. Only the sound of Lisanna's breathing was left, constantly lingering. Yo, Noah. Are you up? Noah. It's been a long time since I saw you come down from upstairs. But you woke up a lot later than usual today. Don't tell me you're still lazing around in bed at this age? Ahahaha. Shoo shoo. Do you think Noah is that brat from your family? That's right. Haha. Ha 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 ha. As soon as Noah walked down the stairs, the guild members noticed him. While they greeted him, they also made fun of each other. As a result, the bar on the first floor of the guild was as noisy as ever. Against the noise, Noah smiled helplessly, but at the same time, he was in a good mood. He responded to them one by one, and blended in with the people around him, appearing to be very harmonious. After all, in this place, Noah was not the chairman of a guild that had taken in a bunch of children with power, nor was he an exception in some school, nor was he an outsider magician who had barged into someone else's territory in search of something. Here, Noah was just a member of Fairy Tale. At best, he was the grandson of the chairman. There was nothing special about him. Of course, if there was anything special about him, Noah was also very special. Other things aside, the fact that Noah could live directly in the guild was already very special. Moreover, after a day, even the new members of Fairy Tale, who had just joined in the past 2 years, had all heard about Noah from the old members. They knew that not only did Noah have the same magic as the strongest magic shooter in the guild, but he had also gone to the guild's Holy Land 2 years ago to receive guidance from the first chairman, who was said to have turned into a ghost. Many people were guessing. After 2 years, Noah, along with Alesha and Mira, had always been far ahead of the rest of his companions. Among the companions of his generation, he could be said to be the strongest. Now what level of strength did he have? Was it the same as before? Was it the same as Alesha, who was now the strongest female magic shooter in Fairy Tale? Or was it the same as Mira, keeping a low profile, and not using the identity of a magic shooter to improve himself? This was something that everyone was extremely curious about. Alesha, Naz, Gray, Lucy, Hubby and others had already seen the tip of the iceberg of Noah's strength. They knew that Noah had been constantly improving himself in the past 2 years, and his strength had become unfathomable. In addition to knowing this, even Alesha and the others did not know how strong Noah really was. Probably, only Makarov more or less had some guesses after yesterday's conversation, right? In short now, all the magic shooters in Fairy Tale were looking forward to seeing Noah's strength. Good morning. Mira, who was carrying a tray and serving drinks to the guild members, turned around and looked at Noah, who came down from upstairs with a smile. "Are you hungry? I'll prepare breakfast for you." How would it feel to see a popular masked girl greet him with a gentle smile when he woke up early in the morning? Other men would probably howl endlessly for this, and Noah might also be shaken. But when he thought of eating up the sister of the popular model last night, and now lying in his room sleeping, Noah felt uncomfortable for a while. No need. At that moment Noah smiled and shook his head. "I'm not very hungry yet." "Even if you're not very hungry, you still have to eat breakfast." Mira came directly in front of Noah, raised her head, and her gentle eyes met Noah's gaze. Like a newlywed wife, she reached out and helped Noah straighten his collar. "Otherwise, it's not good for your health." "Yes." Noah could only stiffen his body and let Mira do as she pleased. It couldn't be helped. Apart from his relationship with Lisanna, Mira had changed too much, and Noah still hadn't completely gotten used to her gentleness. Coupled with his conversation with Lisanna last night, Noah found out about Myra's feelings for him, so it was normal for him to be a little unsure of how to react. But now that he consciously paid attention to Mira, Noah realized that Mira was really different from how she treated him and others. This could be seen from the envious and jealous gazes that were constantly cast at him when Mira was tidying up his collar. So Mira really does have that kind of feeling for Noah. No wonder Mira changed so much when Noah just left. "I thought that after 2 years, Mira would no longer have that kind of feeling. Damn that Noah, I'm so envious." The guild, which had been very noisy until just a moment ago, returned to silence in an instant. Then, all kinds of pitch-black resentment emitted from the bodies of the members of the guild, mixed with all kinds of fragmentary chatter. It was chilling. Eh, 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 eh. In the crowd, Lucy, who saw this scene, was also extremely surprised and let out a puzzled cry. "The person that Miss Mira likes is Noah?" "Ah." The naked Gray glanced at Lucy from the corner of his eyes. "That's something that everyone knows, isn't it?" As soon as he said this, Elisha and Naz at the side turned to Gray in disbelief. So the person that Mira likes is Noah? Why does Mira like Noah? Is Noah more delicious than fire? Alright, I was wrong. Gray face-bombed. Although she has never admitted it, the person that Mira likes should be Noah. Everyone in the guild knows that. Those men even planned to wait for Noah to come back to teach Noah a lesson. On the table, Habe held a fish and casually said to Gray while biting into it, "By the way, Gray, is it really okay for you to be naked?" Oh, Gray seemed to have just realized that he was naked and was shocked. Lucy was speechless. On the other side, Noah, who could only be manipulated by Mira, suddenly frowned and reached out to grab Myra's hand that was moving on his collar. Mira looked at Noah in a daze. However, Noah did not pay attention to Mira. Instead, he pressed Myra's hand down, took a step forward, and looked at the entrance of the guild. There, a few figures slowly appeared and walked towards the guild, one step at a time. Chapter 364. Following a series of rhythmic footsteps, the noises in the fairy tale guild quieted down, as if they could feel the oppressive atmosphere in the air. Noah held Myra's hand and took a step forward, as if he wanted to protect Mira behind him. His gaze was fixated on the direction of the guild's entrance. Therefore, Noah didn't notice that Mira first glanced at the hand Noah was holding, then at the back of Noah, who was standing in front of her. A blush appeared on her face, and for a moment, she even revealed a blissful expression. For Mira, it was obvious that looking at Noah's back was more attractive than looking at the abnormal situation in front of the guild's entrance. Except for Mira, everyone in the guild quietened down and looked at the entrance. Elisha, Naz, Gray, and the others looked at the entrance with a dignified expression. Habe hid behind Naz while trembling with fear. Only Lucy looked around in confusion. She was subconsciously affected by the atmosphere and held her breath. Under such circumstances, a small team appeared in front of everyone in the guild. The moment she saw the leader of this team, Lucy finally understood why everyone in the guild was behaving like this. Although she had only met him once, Lucy knew that this person was definitely out of place in the harmonious atmosphere of the guild. There were a total of 4 people. Among them, one of them wore a fur collar coat and walked in front. The other 3 were like guards, following behind him. It was Lax's and Thor's order. Lax's, who led Thor's order into the guild, seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head and looked forward. When he saw Noah standing in front of Mira, his eyes suddenly narrowed. The originally oppressive aura around him turned into a terrifying pressure. Lax's, Fried, Bikesrow, Alba, and Jerlin didn't seem to have expected that Lax's would suddenly release such an aura. They were stunned for a moment. When they saw Noah in the guild, they were shocked and immediately understood. Only Lax's personal guards, Thor's order, knew what kind of obsession Lax's had with Noah in his heart. For Lax's, Noah occupied a large position in his heart. A strong competitor, a person who may cause hindrance, an enemy who has the ability to pose a threat, an existence that must be defeated. Each of these identities made Noah the biggest demon in Lax's heart. In addition, Makarov had always disagreed with his philosophy but valued Noah. It was imaginable how much of an eyesore Noah was to Lax's. On the other side, Noah fully activated his sensory ability, and included Lax's in the range of his sensory ability. Noah could clearly feel that compared to 2 years ago, Lax's magic had improved by leaps and bounds. In other words, Lax's had also become stronger and more dangerous than 2 years ago. Makarov's worry was indeed necessary. For now, Lax's might really have the power of a 10th saint, which was enough to rival Makarov. If Lax's planned to do something, then Makarov might not be able to stop Lax's. However, compared to the great improvement in his strength, Lax's had also become more dangerous than before. The violent aura that was constantly rolling around his body, and the wild nature of a wild beast that was about to break out of its cage, were all telling Noah that he was not going to let go of this opportunity. Lax's might have reached the limit of his patience, and was about to do something wrong. For no reason, Noah had such an intuition. This caused Noah to narrow his eyes, and his body gradually relaxed. He glanced at the Thunder God clan, who were standing behind Raxus, and looking at him with vigilant expressions. He curled his lips into a smile, and turned his head to look at Mira. "Didn't you want to prepare breakfast for me?" Mira blinked her beautiful big eyes and smiled sweetly. "Okay, please wait a moment." Leaving this sentence, Mira turned around and walked in the direction of the bar. It was also at this moment that a bolt of lightning, like a thunderbolt, flashed through the space and appeared in front of Noah. The next moment, a fist flashing with lightning suddenly appeared, bringing along a burst of crackling sound and a sharp sonic boom, fiercely falling on Noah's head. Bang! In the midst of a muffled sound, a burst of lightning and a strong impact wind with Noah, as the center suddenly shook the surroundings. Not only did the surrounding tables and chairs all fly away, but it also blew away all the guild members who were closer, causing them to cry out in pain. "Noah!" Alesha, Naz Gray, Lucy, and the others exclaimed. Even Mira, who walked into the bar, covered her mouth with her eyes full of worry. Unfortunately, everyone's worries were superfluous. When the impact wind dissipated, the situation at the center of the impact was also exposed to everyone's eyes. They saw that Laxus, who was wearing a fur collar coat, had appeared in front of Noah without anyone noticing. His fist, which was mixed with lightning, was still swinging forward and landed on one of Noah's arms. That was Noah's hand. Raising one hand in front of himself, Noah easily blocked Laxus's powerful blow with his wrist. A faint white light flowed on his wrist, and it shattered the lightning on Laxus's fist that was on his wrist into sparks. Glancing at the fist on his arm, Noah raised his eyes and looked at Laxus, who was looking at him with a gloomy face, and suddenly smiled. "Is this your way of greeting? It's a little different." Laxus showed an arrogant smile, but there was no smile in his eyes. "This is just teaching you how to respect your brother that you haven't seen for a long time. As expected of you," Noah said lightly. "But I'm not surprised. In that head of yours, waving your fist is the best solution to solve problems, right?" "Oh." Laxus's eyes became cold. "I haven't seen you for 2 years. And your mouth has become more eloquent. I just don't know how strong you are. What? Are you interested? Facing the cold light in Laxus's eyes, Noah suddenly smiled, but along with the smile, there was also a suffocating and terrifying aura. I don't mind accompanying you, but I don't have the confidence to hold back. Feeling the terrifying aura coming from Noah, Laxus's face slowly became dignified. Laxus, Freed, Bikesrow, a barge and Jerlin also opened their eyes wide and began to feel anxious. Originally, Thor Group thought that after 2 years, with Laxus's growth, he would definitely not lose to Noah. But now, it seems that Noah's growth is not inferior to Laxus's, and may even surpass him. Could it be that Laxus is no longer Noah's opponent? Thinking of this, Thor Group, who knew how obsessed Laxus was with Noah, was worried. Alusha, Mira, and the others looked at Noah in surprise, as if they did not expect Noah to be so aggressive. Only Naz had a look of excitement on his face, as if he could not wait to join in. Isn't this growing in a good direction? Instead, it was Raxus who laughed maniacally at the same time as he became serious. 2 years ago, you were just a little brat with empty power, but now you have a good domineering aura. Very good. Now you are qualified to be my younger brother. Now I have the value of defeating you. After saying this, the magic power in Laxus's body rose little by little. Beep beep beep. A dazzling arc of electricity flashed from Laxus's body, wrapping Laxus's whole body. Laxus stared straight at Noah with a hint of madness in his eyes. Lightning flashed all over his body as Laxus stared at Noah. Let's go outside. Hearing this, everyone present understood Laxus's meaning. A battle invitation. It was a challenge from one of the strongest substitutes from Fairy Tale. A battle invitation from Laxus, who already had the power of the 10 Saints, and was most likely second only to Makarov and Kildas in the guild. And to this battle invitation, Noah only responded with a calm face. Don't think that I will hold back. Chapter 365. Don't think that I'll hold back. Noah's words completely ignited the oppressive atmosphere in Fairy Tale. Looking at the two brothers confronting each other in the middle of the field, many guild members swallowed their saliva. Even Alusha, Mira, and the others couldn't help but hold their breaths. Laxus could be said to be an outlier in Fairy Tale. In Fairy Tale, Raxus had never had a close relationship with anyone other than the members of Thor's order. In fact, he had even made enemies with almost every single one of them. He was an existence that many people in Fairy Tale hated. Although they said so, no one in Fairy Tale would deny Laxus's strength. In Fairy Tale, there were currently a total of 5 S-rank sorcerers in the guild. Other than Kildas, who was recognized as the strongest, and Mira, who hadn't been active as a magic shooter for 2 years, Laxus, Alusha, and the remaining S-rank magic shooter were known as the 3 strongest candidates in Fairy Tale. It meant that they could replace Kildas at any time. However, even though they were all S-rank magic shooters, the gap between them was still very big. Just like Laxus, based on the strength of Laxus's perception ability, Noah could sense that Laxus definitely had the strength to be rated as one of the 10 great saint magic shooters. Another example was Kildas. Even Makarov admitted that he didn't know if he could suppress him. It could be imagined that Kildas was definitely at the level of a 10 great saint. However, the so-called 10 great saint magic shooters were only chosen by the people of the council. They believed that they were the strongest, most famous, and most upright magic shooters in the continent. Among the 10 great saint magic shooters, there were those who weren't good at fighting, and those who were good at fighting. And of course, these 10 great saint magic shooters, who were good at fighting, were far stronger than ordinary S-rank magic shooters. Although Kildas and Laxus were both S-rank magic shooters, regardless of reputation or conduct, they weren't recognized by the council. Naturally, they weren't able to obtain the title of one of the 10 great saint magic shooters. However, from Noah's point of view, in terms of strength, Kildas and Laxus undoubtedly had the ability to become one of the 10 great saint magic shooters. Even among the 10 great saint magic shooters, the difference in strength between the number 1 and number 10 was like the difference between heaven and earth. How could there not be a difference between S-rank magic shooters? If Laxus had the strength to be ranked one of the 10 great Saint magic shooters, even if he himself was an S-ranked magic shooters, wouldn't be a match for him. Of course, the ordinary members of the guild didn't know about this yet. However, as far as they knew, Laxus had already become an S-ranked magic shooter 7 years ago. Now 7 years later, his strength was even more terrifying. Could Noah defeat Laxus? Just as Mira, who was a little worried, was about to say something to stop this duel, Noah suddenly changed the topic in the arena. That's true, but let's forget about it for today. With that, Noah immediately retracted his hand that blocked Laxus's fist. The mana and aura on his body instantly vanished without a trace. He was just like an ordinary person, weak and powerless. The onlookers who did not expect Noah, who had been so aggressive, to suddenly stop were stunned. Laxus was even more furious, as if he had been insulted. Beep beep beep. Suddenly, the electric arcs that flashed on Laxus's body became even more violent. Are you trying to escape? The furious Laxus growled at Noah. Do you think I'll allow that? Hearing that, Noah still didn't use any mana. He turned his head and looked at Laxus with a mocking gaze. Seems like I've overestimated you, Laxus. Don't you have the ability to pay attention to your surroundings? Hearing that, Laxus was startled at first, then his expression changed. He suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the second floor. On the second floor's railing, Makarov sat there and looked downwards with a gloomy face. Everyone could feel the anger that permeated around him. 2 years have passed, Laxus. You've indeed become stronger, but your naivety hasn't improved with your age, Noah said sympathetically. Once you're in a battle, you only have eyes for your opponent, but you ignore the possibility of enemies around you. Once you have someone to pay attention to, you will ignore the people around you. Just like how you blindly worship strength, but you don't pay attention to the things that are more important than strength. Laxus, you're the older brother, don't let me, the younger brother, lecture you. Laxus's body trembled as he stared at Noah with bloodshot eyes. But what could Laxus say? Although they were in a battle, although they were in his own guild, Laxus didn't notice anything that could possibly affect the battle. Since Makarov appeared here, it was impossible for him to watch the two brothers fight. Therefore Noah, who first noticed Makarov's appearance, decisively stopped. Compared to Noah, not only did he not notice Makarov's appearance, but he also yelled at Noah because of it. He was like a stray dog. How could he lose by just 1 or 2 rounds? Even if they didn't fight, Noah had already proven himself. He had proven that he was better than Laxus. The truth was right in front of him. What could Laxus say? But this fact made Laxus's anger completely erupt. Are you going to stop me again, old man? Driven by anger, Laxus roared at Makarov's direction. Do you think you can still stop me now? Makarov closed his eyes, and after a while, he suddenly opened them, his old eyes flashing. You've all grown up. I really can't control you. If that's the case, then get out of my way. Laxus shouted without hesitation and pointed at Noah. I must prove that I'm the strongest in this guild. Do you still know that you're a member of this guild? Makarov roared. Even if I, as your grandfather, can't stop you, as the guild leader, I won't watch the members of the guild fight. Laxus, don't challenge my bottom line. Laxus clenched his fists and stared at Noah, his eyes filled with madness and anger, as well as a strong sense of unwillingness. If it was any other place, Laxus would have attacked without hesitation. But this was Fairy Tail, the guild that Laxus valued. Just as Noah thought, Laxus had always valued Fairy Tail. But because of some influence when he was young, Laxus was just like Noah said, a naive person, a child who would never grow up. Who would know that Laxus worshipped strength to prove that he wasn't just the grandson of one of the 10 saint magicians, Makarov, but that he relied on his own hard work? Who would know that Laxus only wanted to strengthen Fairy Tail? But his thoughts were twisted, and he felt that the existence of weaklings would endanger the reputation of Fairy Tail? Aside from Noah, even Laxus himself didn't realize all of this. But it was undeniable that Laxus valued Fairy Tail very much. Thus, the crackling of electricity on Laxus' body gradually weakened. Taking a deep breath, Laxus forced himself to calm down. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Noah. One day, I will prove that no matter if it's you, that old man, Mishgang Alusha, or even that pretentious demon, I will not lose to any of you. I am the strongest. Leaving these words, Laxus turned around without hesitation and walked out of the guild. Laxus, Freed, Bikesrow, and Albarge glared fiercely at Noah, and then hurriedly followed behind Laxus and left the guild. Looking at the backs of Laxus and the 4 members of Thunder God's Council, everyone in the guild was silent for a long time. Chapter 366. A heavy atmosphere filled the air of the Fairy Tale Guild. Because of the appearance of Laxus, the joy that had always filled the Fairy Tale Guild had disappeared without a trace. What was left was only depression, when they thought that there was a terrifyingly strong person like Laxus, who had always been at odds with everyone in Fairy Tale. No matter who it was, they would feel depressed. Even if it was Noah. Noah was not afraid of Laxus' provocation or challenge. To be honest, from Noah's point of view, Laxus was like a rebellious child. The lessons of adults would only stimulate the rebellious heart in his heart. So the best way was to scare him and wake him up. Otherwise, he really didn't know how long it would take for Laxus to wake up. However, Noah still had to consider Makarov's feelings. As an old man, the thing that Makarov didn't want to see the most was the killing of his own flesh and blood. Moreover, it was his 2 beloved grandsons who were killing each other. If it wasn't because of this consideration, not to mention the guild leader coming out to stop it, with Noah's current strength, even if the emperor came, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to stop Noah. However, meeting with Laxus again made Noah certain in his heart. Laxus definitely wouldn't wake up naturally, if he didn't want Laxus to do something that would make Makarov worried and sad. Then Noah felt that he had to think of a way. Woo 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 woo. Just when everyone in the guild fell into a stifling silence, suddenly, Naz seemed to have thought of something. He held his head and suddenly shouted, scaring everyone. Before anyone in the guild could ask for the reason, Naz cried out, I actually forgot to fight with Laxus. As soon as these words came out, many people fell to the ground in a burst of crackling sounds. Are you an idiot? Gray roared at Naz. You actually want to challenge Laxus at this time? Did you eat too much fire and burn your head off? What did you say? Naz was also angry. Okay, Naz Gray, don't quarrel at this time. Lucy had a sad face and hurriedly tried to persuade them. This is a very bad situation, very bad. Don't worry about the 2 of them. Alusha sighed. They can even quarrel at this time. I can't stand them. Noah smiled, but there was some admiration in his eyes when he looked at Naz, who was fighting with Gray. As expected of the dragon's son, Shurfang's charisma was extraordinary. With just a few words, he dispelled the oppressive atmosphere in the guild, and everyone returned to normal. Was this the so-called charisma of a person? Naz was really an incredible person. Are you okay? Mira, who was staying at the bar, also came out and held up the hand that Noah used to block Laxus's attack, and said with some concern, You shouldn't be hurt, right? I'm fine. Noah gave Mira a reassuring smile. It's just an obvious attack that can't be more obvious. It's not enough to hurt me. Besides, Laxus hasn't shown his true ability yet. If he wants to hurt me, he won't be qualified if he doesn't use an attack that's 10 times stronger than the one just now. As expected of you, Alusha said with admiration. In the guild, you're the only one who can suppress Laxus. Didn't Laxus just say that he won't admit defeat, including you? Noah shrugged. No matter what, you are still the strongest female magic shooter in Fairy Tale. Don't admit defeat so easily. Everyone is so powerful. On the side, Lucy said enviously. Alusha and that Laxus are both S-grade magic shooters. Although Noah isn't an S-grade magic shooter, he definitely won't lose to that Laxus, that Mishgang, and that Kildas. Fairy Tale really has a lot of powerful people. At this point, Lucy suddenly said doubtfully, But Laxus just mentioned a pretentious magic person. Who is that? Hearing this, everyone around them all quieted down. Mira was originally full of smiles, but after hearing Lucy's words, she suddenly covered her face and cried bitterly. Miss Mira. Lucy was shocked. That guy Laxus, Isn't it too much to say that? In the past, Alyssa would quarrel with Mira every day. It would be abnormal if they didn't start a fight within 3 days. Now, she seemed to have let go of her previous grudges with the gentler Mira. She even stood up for Mira. You actually said that someone is pretentious. There should be a limit to how much you can say without thinking. Lucy was stunned for a moment, and then without any suspense, cried out in surprise. She looked at Mira in disbelief, who was covering her face and crying bitterly. Don't tell me that pretentious magic person is Miss Mira? Whoa. Mira started to cry even more miserably. That, Miss Mira. Lucy was at a loss, and did not seem to know what to do. She could only look at Noah, who had a bitter smile on his face, for help. Noah, quickly help me coax Miss Mira. You guys. Noah could only step forward, reach out his hand, and gently pat Mira's head. Alright, stop crying, Mira. It doesn't matter if you're the violent Mira or the gentle Mira. You're still the Mira I know. No matter what others think of you, I know you. I know the true gentleness in your heart. Hearing this, Mira finally stopped crying. She raised her head and looked pitifully at Noah with teary eyes. Then which one do you like? Once this was said, the whole place fell silent again. In the guild, all the male members stared at Noah with hateful eyes, as if they wanted to kill Noah with their gazes. On the other hand, the female members looked at all of this with a mocking expression, as if they were watching a good show. This made Noah's face stiffen. Noah, as a good brother who loved his sister, Elfman raised his sandbag-sized fist and shouted, If you're a man, you can't back down now. Noah scolded in his heart. Wasn't this adding fuel to the fire? Seeing that Mira was pouting and looking like she would cry at any time, Noah could only brace himself and do it. No matter which Mira. I like both of them. Ah! The female members of the guild screamed, as if they felt that it was mushy. Oh! The male members of the guild screamed in despair, as if they were big bosses that had been defeated. Myra's cheeks turned red, and she finally smiled through her tears. Thank you, I'm so happy. As she said this, Mira stepped forward and put her mouth next to Noah's ear. Since you've confessed, I won't pursue the matter with Lysana. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, and Noah was stunned. Mira, so you knew? No. If he thought about it carefully, it would be strange if you didn't know. After all, Mira and Lysana were sisters, and they lived together. Last night, Noah and Lysana were affectionate for the entire night, and Lysana didn't return home. How could Mira, who lived with Lysana, not know? Moreover, Noah had just returned yesterday, and Mira only needed to think for a moment to know that Lysana didn't return home and stayed at Noah's place. Then there was no then. Just like Lysana knew her sister's feelings best, Mira definitely knew her sister's feelings. Under such circumstances, how could she not know why Lysana stayed out all night with Noah? In other words, this matter had been exposed from the start. Don't make Lysana sad, Mira said softly as she tiptoed. Also, don't make me sad. With that, Mira turned her head, and before Noah could react, she kissed Noah in front of all the guild members. Aha! Seeing this scene, the female members of the guild screamed again. Oh! On the other hand, the male members once again let out miserable howls. Many of them even fell to the ground, unable to move. Holding his cheek, Noah looked at Mira, who was smiling gently at him, and his head became dizzy. What does this mean? Is he really allowing me to have both sisters? This is a free lunch. Chapter 367. As a result, Noah was teased by those who were familiar with him, and those who were unfamiliar with him for a whole day, because he had confessed to Mira in front of everyone in the guild. Mira seemed to have fallen into the same predicament as Noah. But the ones who teased Mira were only the female magic shooters of the guild. Although the male magic shooters also surrounded Mira, they used various ways to say bad things about Noah, as if they were advising Mira not to be deceived. In this regard, Mira treated people with a gentle smile that could melt people all day long. Whether it was the male magic shooters who splashed dirty water on Noah, or the female magic shooters who made fun of her, she always smiled without saying anything, as if she enjoyed this feeling very much. Under such circumstances, Noah simply retreated. Originally, Noah wanted to see if he should accept some commissions today and go out to work. But after Mira and Lax's made such a fuss, he lost all interest. Thus today, Noah's 3 meals were prepared in advance by the gentle Mira. And it seemed that Mira even paid the bill in advance, which made many of his companions tease Noah again, saying that he was living off a woman. But it couldn't be helped. Who asked Noah's savings in this world to be basically used up in the past 4 years of cultivation? And now he didn't even have a penny left. Although in the guild, even if one didn't have money, they could still eat on credit, and the guild wouldn't let the members here starve. But there shouldn't be anyone who would be willing to eat on credit, right? At least, Noah couldn't stand it. This made Noah secretly sigh in his heart. Except in the world of absolute dual blades. Noah's first worry in every world was how to make money, and it was the same when he returned to his own home. This was really crazy. It seemed that no matter what, he would have to go out to work tomorrow. With this thought in mind, Noah endured the teasing of the guild members for a whole day. But Noah didn't know that this plan of his was destined to be unable to be realized. When the sun went down, Mira came to Noah's room. Looking at Lisanna, who was sleeping soundly on Noah's bed, Mira rolled her eyes at the embarrassed Noah. Then, she came to the bedside and pushed Lisanna's delicate body. "Lisanna, wake up." Ugh. Perhaps it was because of Myra's voice, but Lisanna still thought that she was sleeping in her own bed. She turned over and mumbled in her sleep. "Sister Mira, I'm very tired today. I don't want to go to the guild. Please, let me sleep for a while more." Tired? Why was he tired? As long as one wasn't muddle-headed, it wouldn't be difficult to guess based on the current situation, right? This caused Noah's expression to become even more awkward. At the same time, it also caused Mira to reveal a somewhat angry expression. She placed her hands on her waist and angrily said to Noah, "I thought that if it was Noah, he would definitely be very gentle to girls. It seems that I was wrong." Noah didn't know how to respond. In fact, the reason Lisanna became like this wasn't because Noah didn't care about the girl's body for his own comfort. Most of the blame lay with Lisanna. Perhaps it was because she had suppressed her feelings for Noah for too long and had suddenly burst out, or because she knew that Noah had been confessed to by another girl. But last night, Lisanna had unexpectedly taken the initiative. That passion was something that even Noah couldn't take. Of course, it wasn't his body that couldn't take it, but his mind. That was why Lisanna's boundless passion last night didn't just make Noah feel good. It also made her feel satisfied and exhausted. Hence, Lisanna had to bear at least 70% of the blame for this. However, Noah wouldn't push all the blame away because of this. Even if it was because of Lisanna's initiative, the one who tormented Lisanna like this was him. He wouldn't refute. Besides, Lisanna had already given everything to Noah. Couldn't Noah bear the scolding of his sister? That wasn't what Noah would do. "What should we do now?" Mira was a little distressed. "Lisanna hasn't been home for a night. We can't let her spend the night outside. Otherwise, Elfman will definitely be worried." "I think it's better not to wake Lisanna up," Noah said weakly. "I can send Lisanna back." "Is that so?" Mira tilted her head and made a cute expression. Then she said helplessly, "That's the only way." After saying that, Mira went to the clothes rack and took down all of Lisanna's clothes. She turned around and sat on the bed. Her beautiful eyes glanced at Noah, and her cheeks puffed up. Looking at a girl changing clothes isn't something Noah would do. Hearing that, Noah could only bitterly smile and turn around. He couldn't help but feel sad. At this time, "What part of your sister haven't I seen? I've touched her all over." This sentence could only be said in Noah's heart. He couldn't say it out loud. After all, Noah's sharp senses could still feel the displeasure in Myra's heart. Whether it was because her sweetheart had the most intimate relationship with a girl other than herself, or because her most beloved sister's body was taken away by someone else, it was obvious that Mira wasn't as indifferent as she looked on the surface. She just couldn't make things difficult for him. Like Lisanna, Mira was actually very conflicted in her heart. The person her most beloved sister liked was her sweetheart. Mira, who didn't want to see her sister sad, could only choose to give up or be like Lisanna, and choose to ignore and escape. Mira and Lisanna, as sisters, only had one thing in mind. That was, they didn't want to be sad, and they didn't want their closest sister to be sad. So both of them subconsciously avoided making a choice, and threw Noah a sentence that best expressed their feelings. "Don't make us sad." That was all. Chapter 368. Xiao. As Noah expanded his sensing ability, the faint sound of something breaking through the air suddenly became sharp. Hearing the sound of something breaking through the air, Noah's first thought was, "There's an attack." However, this attack was clearly not directed at Noah. Otherwise, Noah's sensitivity towards danger would not have allowed him to not sense it until now. Furthermore, the attack did not come in Noah's direction. Instead, it came from quite a distance away. It was because of this that Noah was a little slow to react. However, even though he was slow to react, Noah's heart still had a bad premonition. Coupled with the feedback from his sensing ability, Noah's heart trembled. He quickly turned around and looked at the end of the street. Over there, the guild building belonging to Fairy Tale stood tall under the moonlight. Around the Fairy Tale guild building, iron rods that were thicker than pillars cut through the air. They flashed through the night sky and landed on top of the guild building with a sharp whistling sound. Pung 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 pung. Amidst a series of dull thuds, the thick iron rods from all directions smashed into the Fairy Tale guild building and stabbed into it, causing pieces of wood to shatter and fall to the ground with a crackling sound. It was only a matter of a moment. In that moment, the guild that was established during the era of the first guild leader of Fairy Tale, under the attack of the iron rods, turned into ruins. Kacha! The guild sign with the words Fairy Tale on it cracked open with a crisp sound. It was as if it had been smashed, and half of it was shattered. About 200 to 300 meters away from the guild building of Fairy Tale, Noah watched all of this happen with a buzzing sound in his head. His mind went blank. Was it destroyed? Fairy Tale was destroyed? Everyone's guild was destroyed? His home was destroyed just like that? Liar. Beside Noah, Mira, who also saw all of this with her own eyes, covered her mouth. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, and even her delicate body was trembling. Our guild. Due to the distance, Fairy Tale's guild building was only the size of a palm in the eyes of Noah and Mira. However, this palm-sized guild building was turned into a dilapidated building in an instant. Mira could clearly see the thick iron rods that were inserted into the palm-sized guild. Although there was no way to confirm the exact damage of the guild building, but looking at the shape of a hedgehog, it was most likely that the guild building was already full of holes. Pung! Just as Mira was staring blankly at everything, there was an explosion beside her. A burst of magic power that was as violent as a hurricane suddenly surged out like a wave of stormy wind. Mira was startled awake and instinctively looked at her surroundings. She saw that Noah, who was carrying Lisanna on his back, had his head lowered. A terrifying magic storm expanded from his body like a volcanic eruption and spread in all directions. It seemed to be deliberately avoiding Mira and Lisanna, bypassing the two girls and spreading in all directions. That magic was so terrifying that even Mira's heart violently shrank. Of course, this was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that, along with the monstrous magic, there was also a terrifying aura that even Laxes could only look at from behind, and a murderous aura that could frighten ordinary people out of their wits. Slowly raising his head, Noah's dark eyes were filled with unprecedented rage, but his face was still calm. He controlled his magic, aura, and murderous aura, not letting them affect Mira and Lisanna. Then, he handed the sleeping Lisanna to Mira. Take good care of Lisanna. After saying that, Noah turned around. Behind him, a blue flame suddenly appeared out of nowhere and turned into two pairs of pitch-black wings that equipped Noah's back. Whoosh! In the next second, the magician in the form of the Death Feather on Noah's back spewed out a large amount of black light, which turned into a substantial propulsive force, causing Noah's figure to soar into the sky. With a turn, he rushed towards the direction of the guild like a stream of light. Mira finally reacted. She hugged the sleeping Lisanna and looked at Noah, who had turned into a streak of light and shot in the direction of the guild. After a long while she said those words. "Be careful." Against the strong wind, Noah used the fastest speed of a magician in the death feather form to reduce the distance of 200 to 300 meters to zero in just 1 or 2 seconds. Floating in the air, Noah looked down at the guild building that had been destroyed by thick iron rods, the fury in his heart surging violently. To the guild members of Fairy Tale, the importance of the guild building was obvious. To Noah, it was not only the guild building, but also the place where he lived. It was his home. His home was destroyed. This fact directly threw Noah's ability to control his emotions, which he was best at, out of the window. He gave his body to the uncontrollable anger to drive him. Even so, the angrier he was, the clearer Noah's mind became, and his thoughts became sharper. In this situation, he only needed to think a little to understand what was going on. Someone was deliberately attacking the guild. With that thought in mind, Noah's gaze shot in a certain direction as if he had sensed something. There, in a small alley, a small dot was gradually becoming smaller at an astonishing speed. That dot was a person. Noah's eyes emitted a frightening cold light. Kacha. Behind Noah, the death feather form of the magician shook, and with a mechanical sound, it split into a wing-like fragment and floated beside Noah. Wang. Bursts of energy like rays of light converged at the tip of the wing-like black fragment, and it rotated like a black hole. Not long after, it converged into a pitch-black ball of light. Bang! In the next second, the pitch-black ball of light directly exploded, turning into a beam of light, cutting through the sky like a meteor, flashing through the night sky, and falling on the body of the gradually fading black dot. Bang! Accompanied by the dull sound of the explosion, a burst of thick smoke and fire like a whirlpool covered the location of the black dot, setting off a violent storm that blew in all directions, shattering the walls of the buildings around the alley. Looking at the place covered by the thick smoke and fire in the distance, Noah waved his hand, and the wing-like black fragment floating beside him moved back and forth, and reassembled on the death feather form of the magician. Immediately, controlling the magician behind him, Noah bent down and flew away. In an empty alley, an open space seemed to have been hit by a meteorite, exposing a medium-sized pit to the air. The inside was charred black, and there were wisps of light smoke rising. Gravel rolled in the pit, and the 2 walls around the pit were also shattered by the shockwaves. People who didn't know would definitely think that there were 2 sorcerers fighting here. And this was not rare in this continent where magic prevailed. At a certain moment in the sky, the sound of a thruster engine reverberated, and a stream of light flew from the distance, arriving above the pit. Looking down at the pit below, Noah slowly descended from the sky and landed next to the pit. Looking around, there were no signs of life in the area covered by his sensing ability. Noah's face was calm, and he walked into the pit. He came to a corner of the pit that was still emitting wisps of light smoke, and looked at the ground there. There was a tattered piece of cloth depicting a certain coat of arms. It was the coat of arms of a certain guild. Picking up the tattered cloth from the ground, Noah stared at the coat of arms on the ground, and in his eyes, a bone-chilling cold light flashed. Phantom Lord. Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. Chapter 369. When the sun rose once again, all the guild members gathered in front of the entrance of Fairy Tale, which had been battered black and blue by a thick iron rod. Looking at the miserable state of the guild in front of them, they couldn't help but avert their gazes. At the front of all the guild members, Makarov closed his eyes tightly. His expression was calm, but the hand that was holding the cane was trembling at an imperceptible frequency. It was obvious that his heart was extremely unsettled. Bang! In the crowd, Nazi clenched his fist and slammed it on the ground, creating a fist-sized hole in the ground. His face was filled with uncontrollable rage. Phantom Lord. Nazi's roar reverberated in the air, causing many people to be enraged as they clenched their fists tightly. Perhaps, many people were like Naz, roaring the name of the guild that hoped to be cut into pieces thousands of times in their hearts. This is too much. Lisanna hugged Mira tightly, as if she didn't want to see the miserable state of the guild. She buried her head in Myra's arms. How can they do this? Mira hugged Lisanna back and gently patted her head. Her usually gentle face was also filled with sadness. It was obvious that she felt extremely uncomfortable in her heart. Even Alusha, Lucy Gray, Elfman, Karna, Lebby, Hubby, and the others lowered their heads in silence. They couldn't bear to see the miserable state of the guild, and kept silent. Fairy Tale and Phantom Lord didn't have a good relationship to begin with. This was something that even outsiders knew. This was because in the current Fury Kingdom, if one were to say which guild was the strongest, people would either say Fairy Tale or Phantom Lord. The two had always been competing for the position of the strongest guild, and neither was willing to submit to the other. Of course, Fairy Tale was simply unwilling to submit to Phantom Lord. However, Phantom Lord was extremely hostile towards Fairy Tale. Compared to Fairy Tale, Phantom Lord not only had a longer history, but also had many branches under his command. It could be said that they had the most members of any guild in the Fury Kingdom. In Phantom Lord's view, Fairy Tale was not only a new guild, but also had a small number of members. They didn't even have a branch, so how could they compete with them for the position of the strongest guild? But it was undeniable that although Fairy Tale had a small number of members, they had a lot of strong players. Kildas, Laxus, Mishgang, Alusha. Any one of these people had the ability to destroy all of the Phantom Lord's branches. Under such circumstances, who would dare to say that Fairy Tale was weak? It was also because of this that Phantom Lord, who was jealous of Fairy Tale for having too many strong players, was so hostile towards Fairy Tale. In addition, Makarov had once fought with Phantom Lord's guild leader and won. Since then, Phantom Lord had been looking for trouble with Fairy Tale. This could be seen from the fact that Noah had been attacked by Phantom Lord when he was young. However, no one would have thought that the Phantom Lord would directly attack the Fairy Tale's guild building. It must be known that the council had explicitly stated that guilds were not allowed to fight privately. Otherwise, the punishment would be light, and the guild could even be disbanded. As such, who would have thought that the Phantom Lord would still dare to attack the guild? Even Noah could only watch helplessly as his guild was destroyed, because he had not thought of it, right? Sigh. After an unknown amount of time, Makarov finally sighed and his tone returned to normal. Immediately get someone to repair the guild. Before the guild is repaired, everyone should clear out the underground warehouse and use it as a temporary workplace. What about Phantom Lord? The hot-headed Naz shouted without hesitation. Let's go and wipe them out. Naz. Makarov's expression did not change, and he still sighed. This matter ends here. None of you are allowed to privately seek revenge. What? This time, not only Naz but everyone else in the guild exclaimed. Guild Master. Alusha stepped forward and looked straight at Makarov. You mean we're just going to let it go? Impossible. Without waiting for Makarov to answer, Naz roared. If I don't send those fellows flying, I will definitely not give up. Naz. Hubby called out with some worry. Calm down, Naz. Lucy also spoke quickly, but there was also a trace of sadness in her eyes. This is the guild master's order. I don't care. Naz, whose heart was filled with anger, said bluntly. If none of you are going, then I'll go. Calm down. Stinky fire. Gray couldn't stand it anymore. Do you know what you're talking about? Do you want to violate the guild master's decision? Naz seemed to want to say something, but he was stopped by Alusha. After taking a deep breath, Alusha regained her composure. If this is the guild master's decision, then we all have to abide by it. Naz, you should understand what I will do if you mess around, right? The veins on Naz's head bulged, and in the end, he could only growl sullenly. Damn it! Under Naz's unwilling growl, many people closed their eyes sadly. Who would be willing? But Makarov's decision was right. After all, private conflicts between guilds were prohibited. In order to protect the guild, they could only swallow this anger into their stomachs. Of course, it was also because there was no one in the destroyed guild. If someone was injured, Makarov would never tolerate it. If the building was destroyed, then Makarov's decision was destined to be only one. Endure. However, even if Makarov could endure it, it didn't mean that others could. Noah, who had been quietly watching this scene from the corner, suddenly turned around and walked in another direction. Brother Noah? Lisanna, who was closest to Noah, noticed this and quickly called out, "Where are you going?" With one sentence, everyone's gaze was attracted to Noah. Noah, Mira, who felt a bad premonition, also spoke. "Don't be impulsive." Noah. At the front of the crowd, Makarov shouted without turning his head. "Come back here." Noah stopped in his tracks and turned around. His face was as calm as the calm before the storm. It was a face that struck fear in others. "I'm sorry, Grandpa. To you this is just a guild being destroyed, but to me, it's my home being destroyed. Since that's the case, it's normal for me to go and ask for some compensation. Besides, if I go alone, it won't be considered a conflict between guilds, right?" "What do you mean?" Makarov was startled and turned around abruptly. "You want to challenge a guild by yourself?" Hearing this, Noah laughed. His laugh was unusually cold. Noah turned around and left only one sentence. "One person is enough." With that, Noah strode forward and disappeared at the end of the street. Seeing this, Makarov sighed again. Mira and Lisanna looked at each other and placed their hands in front of their chest, as if praying for Noah's safety. Chapter 370. This was a hall located at the top of a magnificent building. At the very front of the hall, there was a throne-like seat. A middle-aged man wearing a sorcerer's hat and looking very similar to a sorcerer was sitting on it, looking down. His sinister face was slightly gloomy at this moment, and he did not look very good. And in the hall, 5 people were standing side by side. No, it should be said that there were 4 people standing side by side, and the remaining person was kneeling on the ground with one knee. His whole body was in tatters, and one of his hands seemed to have been burned. His whole body was charred black, and blood was dripping out. It seemed that his injury was not light. If there was someone in the know here, they would definitely be able to recognize the identity of the people here. Sitting on the throne-like seat was the president of Phantom Lord, like Makarov, who also had the title of one of the 10 Saint Archmages, Joseph Bala. And standing side by side in the hall were the 4 S-rank Archmages of Phantom Lord, who had the title of 4 Elements: Aliyah, Julian, Saul, and Bunbun Ball. As for the one kneeling on the ground with his hand still dripping with blood, it was the existence of Phantom Lord, who was known as the strongest Archmage Gadula Latefox. However, this existence known as Phantom Lord, who was known as the strongest Archmage, didn't seem to be in a very good condition. This was also the main reason why the guild leader of the Phantom Lord, Joseph, had such an ugly expression on his face. "You said that after you attacked Fairy Tale last night, someone attacked you?" "That's right." Gadula's expression was also unsightly. His eyes were filled with savagery, and there was even a wild rage surging in them. "At that time, I had already started to withdraw, but I was suddenly attacked. If I hadn't noticed the strange smell in the air and dodged in advance, now, I wouldn't be as simple as just being injured." "You're saying that not only does someone in Fairy Tale have the ability to injure you like this, but they can also attack you without you noticing," Joseph said in a low voice. "Who is it? Laxus, Mishgang, or that fairy queen Alusha? It shouldn't be that Kildas who travels all year round, right? Could it be Makarov himself?" Joseph could only think of these people. After all, Joseph knew of Gadula's strength. In Fairy Tale, there was absolutely no one else who could silently injure Gadulu like this with a single attack. Joseph was very confident of this point. After all, as a guild that had always been hostile towards him, any information regarding Fairy Tale was of utmost importance to Joseph. Therefore, Joseph was confident that unless it wasn't someone from Fairy Tale, only the existences he could think of could hurt Gadulu in one strike. Unfortunately, Joseph made a mistake this time. After 4 years of hard work and 2 years of traveling, Noah had long faded out of the sight of the people who paid attention to Fairy Tale. His fame was lower than Naz, Gray, and the others, so it was naturally impossible for him to enter Joseph's eyes. Sad, really sad. Aliyah's voice was sobbing, as if she could cry at any time. I really feel sad for Mr. Gadjaloo. Julian doesn't think it's President Makarov. Julian, who was holding an umbrella, said with a somewhat melancholy expression. If that person personally attacked, Mr. Gadjaloo would definitely be able to detect it. That's true. Bunnyball, who had a sword at his waist like a warrior, said in a deep voice. I heard that Makarov's magic is the type that makes a lot of noise. If he attacked Mr. Gadjaloo would definitely be able to detect it. No. Thor, who was dressed like a gentleman, said with a smile while twisting his body like a clown. Then it's Lax's Mishgang or Alusha, right? Is that right? Hearing the words of the four elements, Gadjaloo raised his eyes filled with ruthlessness and coldly looked around. Shut up. Hearing that, whether it was Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball, or Thor, they all obediently shut their mouths. Obviously, even the four elements were afraid of Gadjaloo. You're so long-winded. If I knew who it was, would I still need to stand with you with such an ugly appearance? Gadjaloo spat out a mouthful of saliva and said bitterly, Remember, don't let me know who you are. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present sensed it. The ground just now shook. Bang! Immediately after, an explosive sound reverberated from below and entered the ears of everyone present. Joseph narrowed his eyes and smiled. Could it be that Fairy Tale is here? Oh! Gadjaloo giggled, and that smile was extremely cruel. I thought it would take more effort to lure them here, but I didn't expect it to be so easy. Sure enough, Fairy Tale is only at this level. Hearing Gadjaloo's words, the four magic shooters of the four elements looked at each other. At this point, it was easy to guess what was going on. It felt like the Phantom Lord's attack on Fairy Tale was all planned out, and it wasn't because of a momentary conflict. If Makarov really attacked, it would save me a lot of trouble. Joseph smiled gloomily. But before that, let's make sure. Saying this, Joseph stood up and looked down at the 5 people below. I'll leave this place to you guys. If it's just the people from Fairy Tale, then cripple them all. Just remember not to kill them. If Makarov is also here, then we'll proceed according to plan. Yes. Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball, and Saul all responded at the same time. As for Mr. Gadjaloo, Joseph frowned. Since you're all injured, why don't you take a rest? Injured? Gadjaloo laughed, and his laughter was unusually irritable. This kind of injury, as long as I'm full, I'll be able to recover in no time. Is that so? Joseph smiled with satisfaction. Then I'll leave it to you. Leaving this sentence, Joseph's figure turned into a black shadow and disappeared into the air. Compared to Fairy Tale, the building of Phantom Lord was a bit gloomy. At first glance, one could tell that it wasn't a place suitable for people with cheerful personalities. Here, a bunch of delinquent youths and hoodlums were gathered together, eating and drinking to their heart's content. From time to time, they would let out angry curses, causing the entire Phantom Lord to be in an uproar. However, the noise here was different from that in Fairy Tale. If the noises of Fairy Tale belonged to the daily quarrel between friends, then the noises of Phantom Lord were the kind of chaos where a group of hooligans gathered together, making people flinch at the sight of it. Just as the magic shooters in Phantom Lord were making noise, suddenly, the ground shook slightly. Bang dash! In the next second, the door of the Phantom Lord exploded, turning into fragments that shot out in all directions like bullets. What's wrong? What's going on? The magic shooters in Phantom Lord stood up in fright and looked toward the door. There, a figure slowly appeared. Chapter 371. Who? Without any hesitation, the magic shooters of the Phantom Lord all grabbed their weapons and stood up, looking fiercely in the direction of the door. As long as one was not a fool, they would definitely be able to guess what had happened in the first instance. Someone is here to pick a fight. Under the watchful gazes of the magic shooters, Noah passed through the smoke and flames caused by the explosion of the door and appeared in the eyes of all the magic shooters of the Phantom Lord. He raised his head and swept his torch-like eyes forward. The group of Phantom Lord magic shooters saw Noah appear at the door. At first, they were startled, Then they looked at each other and laughed out loud. What, so it's a little brat? Why is this little brat here? Could it be that he's lost? Kid, do you need us to take you to find your mother? Ahahaha. Without exception, all the sorcerers who belonged to the Phantom Lord chose to ridicule him at this moment. In the eyes of these magic shooters, a person like Noah who was not even 20 years old, even if he was a magic shooter, was just a little brat. Since he dared to come to the Phantom Lord to pick a fight, one could imagine what would happen to him later. Of course, the most important thing was not because Noah was relatively young, but because Noah was only one person. Otherwise, these magic shooters who knew their own worth would definitely not have the guts to laugh at someone who dared to come to the Phantom Lord to pick a fight. In the face of the mockery from the Phantom Lord's magic shooters, Noah's expression remained unchanged, but the look in his eyes became slightly disdainful, and there was also some indignation and anger in his eyes. Are all the magic shooters of Phantom Lord such magic shooters of Phantom Lord such magic shooters? Was the guild that had hidden so many small fries to cause trouble for Fairy Tail? They didn't even have a single person with good eyesight. How could these guys compete with Fairy Tail for the title of the strongest guild? And on what basis did he dare to make a move against Fairy Tail? Driven by this thought, Noah's face became colder and colder. He ignored the mockery of the Phantom Lord and spoke indifferently. Tell Joseph to get out here. With that one sentence, the mocking laughter that echoed throughout the entire Phantom Lord Guild came to an abrupt halt. A man walked out of the crowd and stood in front of all the Phantom Lord archmages. He seemed to be the most prestigious person among the archmages present. He represented the entire Phantom Lord and looked coldly at Noah. You little brat, you dare to call our president by his name? Don't even think about leaving here today. Hearing this, Noah was about to say something, but when he saw the speaker coming out of the crowd, he was slightly startled. Then a light flashed in his eyes. Noah knew this person. Although he had only met him once when he was young, Noah had a very deep impression of him, because this person in front of him had left a hideous scar on Noah's hand that was enough to last a lifetime. It was Maglia who had led the Phantom Lord branch archmages to intercept Noah, Elisha, and Laxus during the Ritual Lake mission. He had attacked Noah's group and left a hideous scar on Noah's hand. After 7 years, the archmage who had seen the potential of Noah, Elisha, and Laxus, and who had wanted to eradicate the future pillar of Fairy Tail by hook or by crook had finally appeared in front of Noah once again. As soon as he saw Maglia's face, which was relatively older and colder than 7 years ago, Noah smiled. His smile was unusually excited. Oh, isn't this Mr. Maglia who was easily defeated by Laxus, who was also a little brat? Maglia's cold face suddenly stiffened, and then became ferocious. Who are you? How do you know about this? Speak! Maglia yelled at the top of his lungs. Back then, the matter of Laxus being able to resolve it so cleanly had always been a thick thorn in Maglia's heart. That was to be expected. Maglia was very conceited. When they first met, he had obviously looked down on Noah, Elisha, and Laxus's group. However, because of the commission, he had lost a lot of face. That was still nothing. The key was that under such circumstances, Maglia had led people to block Noah's group. In the end, not only had he been stimulated by the talent and potential of Noah and Elisha, but he had also been easily defeated by Laxus. This made the conceited Maglia go crazy countless times after the incident. However, what could Maglia do? As time passed, Laxus, who had easily defeated Maglia, became an S-rank magic shooter. His strength improved rapidly. Elisha also began to show her talent and received the title of Fairy Queen. Her reputation shook the entire Fiori kingdom. Compared to Elisha and Laxus, Maglia was already more than 40 years old 7 years ago. His potential had long been exhausted. In these 7 years, his strength could only be described as the speed of a turtle compared to Elisha and Laxus. Until now, he had not reached the level of an S-rank magic shooter. How would Maglia dare to seek revenge? He could only bear this grudge and swallow this resentment in his heart. However, after 7 years, this humiliation that almost made Maglia go crazy was once again mentioned. How could Maglia not fly into a rage? Mr. Maglia is really forgetful. Facing Moglia's rage, Noah only sneered. He raised his hand, rolled up his sleeves, and showed his bandaged hand to Moglia. Don't tell me you forgot that in order to protect Alusha, you left a scar on my hand. Alusha? Fairy Queen? Moglia was suddenly shocked, and then his eyes widened. So it's you. In this life, Moglia and Alusha only met once when they were young. In addition, Noah also mentioned Laxus and the matter of protecting Alusha. How could Moglia not think of Noah? One must know that in the past Noah, who did not know magic, also fiercely punched Moglia's face. That humiliation was not one bit less than being cleanly dealt with by Laxus. Stinking brat. Looking at Noah's face full of ridicule, Moglia's hidden scar in his heart was finally completely open, causing Moglia to madly roar. I'll kill you. After saying this, Moglia's entire body exploded with a burst of extremely violent and frightening lightning. His body turned into a bolt of lightning, and like a bolt of lightning, he rushed in the direction of Noah, and violently shot in front of Noah. Go to hell! In the midst of the angry roar, Moglia raised his fist, which was surrounded by lightning, against the hot air, and mercilessly swung it at Noah's head amidst the sharp sound of the air breaking. If this punch really hit, then even if it was a magic shooter with decent strength, his head would directly explode, and he would die on the spot. Obviously, Moglia did not have the slightest intention of showing mercy. Once he made a move, it was a sure kill blow, and he wanted to kill Noah. Unfortunately, Moglia was destined to live in tragedy for the rest of his life. Starting from 7 years ago, when he chose to surround Noah and his group. Hence, before Moglia could see the scene of Noah's head exploding from his punch, a hand suddenly appeared in front of him, passed through the layers of lightning on Moglia's body, and landed a punch on Moglia's chest. Bang! A violent impact with extremely terrifying power surged into Moglia's body. Poochie! Moglia only felt as if he was hit by a heavy hammer. His chest shook, his body trembled, and he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 372. Crimson blood spurted out of Moglia's mouth and sprayed in the direction of Noah. Noah casually sidestepped and avoided the spray of blood. He twisted his body and suddenly lifted his leg. His thigh was like a long whip as it suddenly lashed out and heavily smashed into Moglia's chest before he could be sent flying. That position was exactly the same as the position where Noah had previously swung his fist. Bang! Along with a muffled sound, a kacha sound was heard from Moglia's chest. Wah! Blood spurted out of Moglia's mouth as if it was free of charge. Moglia himself was hit by Noah's meteor-like kick and suddenly fell to the ground, smashing it until it cracked slightly. Looking at this scene, the group of Phantom Lord magic shooters were all shocked and dumbfounded. Stepping on Moglia's chest and looking down at Moglia's face that was covered in blood, Noah's face was calm. I've repaid my debt to you. You. Moglia raised his hand with difficulty and pointed at Noah with a trembling hand. Other than disbelief, there was only disbelief on his face. Unlike those Phantom Lord magic shooters, Moglia knew that Noah was a fairy tale magic shooter. However, in the past 7 years, the reputation of the powerful magic shooters in fairy tale had long been known by everyone. Even the fire-annihilating dragon magic shooter, Naz, had made a name for himself. However, Noah had not made a name for himself in the past 7 years. When Laxus became an S-rank magic shooter, and his strength advanced by leaps and bounds, the name Noah did not appear. When Alusha received the title Fairy Queen, and her reputation shook the Fiori Kingdom, the name Noah still did not appear. Later, when Demon Mira Jenny, Fire Dragon Naz, the enigmatic Mishgang, and even Grey and Elfman made a name for themselves, the name Noah did not appear at all. Only when people mentioned Makarov and Laxus's family did they make a name for themselves. Other than that, not to mention the Fiori Kingdom, even the people of Magnolia did not mention Noah. Over time, Moglia thought that he had misjudged Noah, and thought that he was not a genius at all. In the beginning, he still wanted to find trouble with Noah, but later on, because there was no news of Noah, he threw it to the back of his mind. He did not expect that after 7 years, this person would appear in front of him once again. Just when he thought that he could still crush him with one hand, the result was that he was defeated in one move. At this moment, Mowgli only felt that his vision turned black. The humiliation that emerged from his heart was 1,000 times, 10,000 times heavier than before. Because this time, Mowgli was no longer dealt with cleanly by a little brat in the wilderness. Instead, he was dealt with in front of the many colleagues of the Phantom Lord. From now on, everyone would know of Mowgli's embarrassing incident. They would know that he had overestimated himself and rushed out, only to be cleanly defeated in the end. Poochie! The uncontrollable humiliation made Mowgli spit out another mouthful of blood. His head tilted to one side and he actually fainted. Seeing this, Noah frowned and snorted coldly. When I think that it was a guy like you who left a scar on my hand, I feel disgusted. After saying this, Noah lifted the foot that was stepping on Mowgli's chest and ruthlessly kicked his side ribs. Pung! In the muffled sound, Mowgli's limp body that was lying on the ground was kicked away like a rubber ball. He smashed into a table not far away, and was buried by the table debris and tableware, in a burst of crackling sounds. I'll say it again. Just like kicking away a rock that was in the way. After kicking Mowgli away, Noah stepped forward step by step, and walked into the Phantom Lord's guild. He stared coldly at the group of sorcerers who looked like gangsters. Tell Joseph to get out here or else, I'll tear this place down. The group of magic shooters from the Phantom Lord all retreated together, with a frightened expression on their faces. This time, no one dared to look down on Noah. It must be known that Mowgli's strength was one of the best in the Phantom Lord, and was only below Gajaloo and the 4 elements. Even such a person was defeated by the little brat that everyone from the Phantom Lord had just mocked. Who would be stupid enough to continue to think that Noah was just a little brat? However, there was no lack of people in this world who overestimated their own strength. Everyone don't be afraid. In the crowd, a deliberately fierce voice shouted. No matter how powerful he is, he's only one person. There are so many of us here. Why should we be afraid of a kid? Everyone, let's attack together. This sentence made the magic shooters from the Phantom Lord hesitate for a moment, and then they all showed a sinister expression. Attack! Everyone attack together! Oh! Not long after, the whole Phantom Lord guild roared. One by one, magic shooters rushed out with weapons in their hands, like crazy wild dogs or bullies bullying the weak, and rushed towards Noah. With just a glance, Noah could tell that these so-called sorcerers who were rushing towards him were using magic similar to the outfit change type of magic. In other words, the magic these people used was the most common type. There were redeeming qualities. However, not a single person was able to display their full potential. Trash. Real trash. This was the drawback of the Phantom Lord, focusing too much on developing the guild's scale and expanding its influence, but not concentrating on cultivating the strong. Therefore, other than Gajaloo and the 4 elements, the only thing the Phantom Lord could bring out was the number of people. Thinking that it was such a guild that destroyed his own guild, Noah's anger rose in his heart. Square root. Spitting out a language that no one could understand, Noah raised his hand, gathered magic on his finger, and wrote a faintly discernible mysterious rune in the air in front of him. Wung! Suddenly in front of Noah, the air suddenly condensed, spiraled, and turned into a gust of wind, like a substantial shock wave, suddenly shaking out. Dong! In an instant, it was as if an invisible explosion had occurred in the entire Phantom Lord guild. The shock wave formed by the surging wind was like a wave, hitting the magic shooters one by one. Bang! The magic shooters of the Phantom Lord felt as if they had hit a wall, and then in bursts of screams, they flew upside down, or hit the ground, or hit the wall, overturning tables and chairs and cracking the ground, causing the ground to shake violently. For a time, the sound of wailing continued to reverberate. In just a moment, all the magic shooters of the Phantom Lord were defeated by Noah. In this regard, Noah just withdrew his hand and sighed. Are you done watching the show? The whole place suddenly became quiet. After a while, A few figures appeared at the entrance of the stairs in front of Noah's eyes. It was Gadjaloo and the four elements. Noah's gaze swept across Gadjaloo, Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball and Saul, and finally fell on Gadjaloo. From this person, Noah could sense the aura of the person from last night. Therefore, there was no doubt that the person who attacked the fairy tale guild was this guy in front of him, Gadjaloo Retfox. Chapter 373. The wails of the sorcerers from the Phantom Lord were still echoing in the air. In the middle of the magic shooters lying on the ground, Noah, Gadjaloo, Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball, and Saul looked at each other from a distance, causing the atmosphere in the air to become heavy. Too sad. Too sad. Aaliyah, whose eyes were wrapped with a cloth, cried without the slightest warning. A young life will wither here in a while. It's really too sad. No. 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 Saul twisted his body like an earthworm, spread out his hands pretentiously, tilted his head, and looked at Noah. Although it's just a group of small fries, to be able to defeat so many magic shooters in an instant, you're definitely not an ordinary kid. I'm very curious about who you are. The sharp-eyed Bunnyball saw the guild emblem on the back of Noah's hand and frowned. Fairy tale? Makarov actually let you come alone? Pitter-patter-patter. Julian, who was holding an umbrella, also had a sullen expression. Unfortunately, it seems that this person can't leave here. The four S-ranked magic shooters from the Phantom Lord spoke, as if there was no one else around. They didn't take the wailing magic shooters lying on the ground seriously, nor did they show any importance to Noah, as if they had already sentenced Noah to death. Only Gadjaloo, whose inorganic eyes seemed to be cast out of steel, stared at Noah with a gloomy expression. You're the one who attacked me last night, right? These words shocked the members of the four elements, and they all looked at Noah one after another. Him, the sorcerer who defeated the entire Phantom Lord, was not worthy of much praise from the people of the four elements. After all, as a member of the same guild, it was impossible for the four elements guild not to know how lousy the normal magic shooters in the Phantom Lord were. But if the other party was the one who injured Gadjaloo last night, then it would be different. After all, even Joseph claimed that in Fairy Tale, apart from those S-ranked magic shooters, no one could injure Gadjaloo to such an extent. In other words, if the person in front of him was really the culprit who injured Gadjaloo, and was also a magic shooter from Fairy Tale, then the other party's strength was definitely S-rank. The four elements had no choice but to pay attention to this matter. So that's how it is. Noah looked directly at Gadjaloo and suddenly smiled. In other words, the person who attacked my house last night was really you, right? Gadjaloo let out a strange laugh. That's right. I was the one who turned your union into a pile of trash. Is that so? Noah closed his eyes. Then I found the right person. As soon as his voice fell, boom, with the sound of an explosion and a gorgeous vortex of air under Noah's feet, Noah's body turned into a stream of light and flashed like a comet, instantly appearing in front of Gadjaloo. In the next moment, a wisp of blue flame rose from Noah's hand and turned into a pitch-black knight's sword, which fell into Noah's hand. Clang! The slash that turned into a dazzling sword light suddenly flashed, and like a whip, it flung across Gadjaloo's body. Poochie! A burst of blood burst out in front of Gadjaloo's chest. Blood spilled into the sky. Gadjaloo's pupils slowly shrank, and soon shrank to the size of a needle tip. His body carried a burst of blood, and as if he was flying out in the air, he retreated. As for the four elements, their expressions gradually stiffened when they saw the blood droplets flying into the air. Regardless of whether it was Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball, or Saul, none of them could react, let alone know what had happened. Only Gadjaloo looked at Noah, who was 10 meters away a second ago, and suddenly appeared in front of him. Noah's eyes flashed with a cold light as he held the Black Knight's sword in his hand. A sharp pain spread from his chest to his whole body, as he felt it in hindsight. With a closer look, Gadjaloo saw a hideous and terrifying wound from his shoulder to his ribs. Along with a burst of red blood, his clothes were dyed red little by little. Gadjaloo, who vaguely sensed what had happened, had a fierce expression. Ignoring the serious wound on his chest, he stomped on the ground with one foot and steadied himself. Then, he clenched his iron-gloved hand into a fist and raised it. Iron Dragon Staff. As soon as he finished speaking, Gadgelu waved his fist fiercely. His fist directly transformed into a thick iron rod, like a steel water pipe taken out from an underground tunnel somewhere. With a gust of wind, it violently shot towards Noah's face like an arrow released from a bow. Bang! Just as the thick iron staff was about to hit Noah's face, Noah raised his hand and firmly caught the incoming thick iron staff with a muffled sound and a slight gust of wind. Only then did the four elements react. Shocked, they jumped up without hesitation and put some distance between them. Looking at the scene in the middle, a shocked expression appeared on their faces. Drip! One hand turned into an iron staff and swung forward, while the other hand held the wound on his chest. A drop of blood dripped from Gadgelu's body and gradually dyed the ground red. Cough, cough. Gadgelu couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. He raised his head and stared at Noah not far in front of him, growling. Bastard! Not bad. You can still launch an attack with such a heavy injury. However, you dare to attack my house directly? If you don't have this ability, you won't be able to do it. Holding the iron staff formed by Gadgelu's fist, Noah raised his eyes and looked at Gadgelu. There was only calmness on his face. If I'm not wrong, you should be using the same spell as our guild's Naz Dragon Slayer spell, right? Who would tell you this guy? Enduring the severe pain in his chest, Gadgelu angrily shouted. Who are you? Since when did Fairy Tail have a character like you? I've never even heard of you. Damn it. It doesn't matter if you don't know me. Noah sneered. Next, I'll make sure you never forget me. This time, before his voice faded, Noah's figure suddenly rushed out, causing Gadgelu's vision to blur. Then, Noah's figure appeared in front of him again, bringing along a whirlwind. His fist punched out, viciously smashing towards Gadgelu's head. Due to the destruction of his guild, Noah had unleashed every ounce of power he had this time. He had held nothing back. Under such circumstances, Gadgelu was not a powerful opponent for Noah at all. Thus, when Noah's fist was about to reach Gadgelu's head, Gadgelu sensed it while being on high alert. His expression changed drastically, and in a hurry, he raised his hands and crossed them in front of his head. Mana surged up, turning his arms into steel. Clank! The heavy fist landed heavily on Gadgelu's crossed arms that had turned into steel. Gadgelu let out a muffled sound, and his feet slid across the ground. After retreating for nearly 10 meters, he finally stabilized his body. Feeling the numbness from Noah's punch, shock appeared on Gadgelu's face. His hands had turned into steel, yet he could still cause such an impact? Who on earth was this person? You're still looking. Gadgelu yelled at the four elementals beside him in shock. Let's go together. Hearing this, Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball, and Saul suddenly woke up. They couldn't care less about their numbers, and began to surge the mana in their bodies. But at this moment, Noah didn't choose to continue attacking. Instead, he lightly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and rapidly retreated. Wung! Without giving Gadgelu and the four elements any chance to react, a circle of gorgeous rainbow ripples spread out from the ground with Gadgelu as the center, and instantly covered the ground where Gadgelu and the four elements were. In the gorgeous rainbow ripples, runes flashed one after another. Surprisingly, it was the Runi script. Chapter 374. Wang! The gorgeous rainbow-colored ripples seemed to have turned the ground into a rainbow-colored lake. Wherever the ripples touched, the ground was replaced by rainbow-colored light, turning into a gorgeous curtain of light. In the curtain of light, mysterious runes jumped up and down like small fish, blooming with dazzling light. When combined together, they formed the beautiful curtain of light on the ground. If one were to count them carefully, they would find that there were at least 1,000 runes written on the ground. In other words, Noah had unknowingly carved more than 1,000 runes on the ground where Gadgelu, Aaliyah, Jalibian, Bunny Pill, and Saul were. If Qingzi, Yuzhu, or Chung who was also a master of the Rini magic, knew about this, they would definitely be shocked. Although after a certain degree of improvement, magicians who used the Rini magic trick could more or less increase the speed of inscribing Rini magic trick. Imagine how proficient Noah was at inscribing so many Rini magic tricks without even realizing it. One could only imagine how proficient he was at the Rini magic trick. As for Noah, it had been less than 3 months since he had learned the first elementary level of the Rini script. In 3 months, he had improved the Rini magic to such an extent? Perhaps the gods, priests, and witches who used the runes in Norse mythology could do it, but among modern magicians, there was absolutely no one who could do it to such an extent. Gadjalu, Aaliyah, Jalibian, Bunny Pill and Saul, who didn't know what kind of feat Noah had done, only felt that something strange had happened on the ground. When they discovered that the ground had been replaced by the rainbow-colored curtain of light, they suddenly shouted in unison, "Oh no! Wang!" At this moment, the rainbow-colored curtain of light on the ground suddenly shook, and the light on it became even more dazzling. Immediately, dazzling pillars of light suddenly rose from the rainbow-colored curtain of light. Ding 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 ding. Every pillar of light raised a bell-like sound, and in a short period of time, countless pillars of light rose from the rainbow-colored curtain of light. When Gadjalu, Aaliyah, Jalibian, Bunny Pill, and Saul reacted, the dazzling pillars of light rose from the rainbow-colored curtain of light and formed a light cage around them, imprisoning them inside. Wang! Gadjalu resisted the sharp pain in his body, raised his steel-like fist, and heavily smashed it on the light cage. Clang! In the end, the blow that was powerful enough to shatter the wall only caused a crisp sound. It was as if it had also hit steel, and there was not even a trace of a crack. What kind of magic is this? Rune magic. Aaliyah, who could no longer pretend to cry. She removed the bandage around her eyes. Her eyes, which looked like 4 petals combined, exuded a strange aura, which made Aaliyah's magic power by several levels. Sky Domain Absolute. Aaliyah raised her palm, which gathered a large amount of magic power, and like Gadjalu, heavily smashed it on the light cage. Bang! A powerful shockwave suddenly appeared like a storm and landed on the light prison. However, it only caused the entire light prison to tremble, but it was unable to create even a single crack. Impossible! Aaliyah cried out in alarm. I've already released all my magic power, but I still can't break this cage. Even Gadjalu and Aaliyah couldn't do anything to the prison of light, so Julian, Bunnyball, and Thor couldn't do anything. After all, Gadjalu was known as the most powerful sorcerer in the Phantom Lord. Aaliyah, on the other hand, was the leader of the 4 elements and the strongest of them all. If Gadjalu and Aaliyah couldn't break this cage, then Jalibian, Bunny Pill, and Saul couldn't do anything either. Not even Jalibian. The umbrella in Jalibian's hand was thrown away at some point, and his body turned into water, but he couldn't pass through the cage. This cage can reflect magic power. Even the ground is imprisoned. Saul cried out. Even I, who can control sand, can't drill into the ground. There's no way out of this cage. Tisk! Bunny Pill, who knew that magic was useless, even used the knife at his waist to slash at the light cage, but it only made a crisp clang sound. No physical attacks can't break it. In other words, the 5 strongest members of the Phantom Lord, with the exception of the guild leader Joseph, were all subdued by Noah in one move. In front of Noah, regardless of whether it was the strongest of the Phantom Lords, Gadjalu, or the 4 elements, who was comparable to an S-rank magic shooter, they were all like ordinary magic shooters lying on the ground. They were not a match for Noah's one move. This was to be expected. This cage, if it was the S-rank magic shooters of Fairy Tale, any one of them would have the ability to break it. Noah, who was holding the pitch-black knight's sword, stood in front of the 5 light cages and looked at Gadjala's group of 5 as he sneered. And the S-rank sorcerer of the Phantom Lord doesn't seem to have the ability to do so. The expressions of Gadjalu and the 4 elements immediately turned ugly. In the outside world, people had always compared Fairy Tale and Phantom Lord, saying that the 2 guilds were evenly matched. Fairy Tale had 5 S-rank magic shooters, including Mira, Elisha, Kildas, Laxus, and Mishgang. The Phantom Lord also had Gadjalu, Aaliyah, Jubian, Bunnyball, and Thor, a group of 5 S-rank sorcerers. Therefore, outsiders had always thought that the two guilds were evenly matched. However, this was actually a misconception. The difficulty of the S-ranked magic shooter's advancement test in each guild was different. As for Fairy Tail's S-ranked magic shooter advancement test, it had always been known as the most difficult test. This was because only S-ranked magic shooters could accept S-ranked missions, because S-ranked missions were too dangerous, and because Makarov loved everyone in the guild and treated them as his own family and children. Makarov raised the difficulty of the S-ranked magic shooter's advancement test to the highest level. That way, the magic shooters who could pass the test with powerful abilities would naturally have a higher chance of surviving the mission. But Phantom Lord was obviously different. Unlike Makarov, Joseph did not treat the members of the guild as his family. In Noah's opinion, the so-called S-ranked magic shooters of Phantom Lord were better than Naz and Gray, while some could only be considered at the same level. They could not be compared to S-ranked magic shooters like Mira and Alesha. And for Noah, who had absolute confidence in defeating such an opponent, even the 10 Saints Makarov, Kildas, and Laxus would not need too much time to go all out and take him down. Noah stepped forward and arrived in front of Gadjalu. He stretched out his hand and grabbed Gadjalu's collar, pulling him over. Bang! Gadjalu's head suddenly slammed into the light cage, making him furious. You bastard! You destroyed our guild, so I'll destroy your guild too. Noah tightened his grip on Gadjalu's collar and looked at Gadjalu's angry face with an indifferent smile. If you're not convinced, remember to look for me at any time. My name is Noah Doria. With that, Noah let go of Gadjalu, glanced at everyone present, turned around and walked out, disappearing in front of the door. The moment Noah left, all the runes on the ground swelled up. Boom! Not long after, a mushroom cloud rose into the sky amidst the thunderous explosion. Chapter 375. Pa! Pa pa! The sound of small stones rolling down echoed from time to time, spreading in all directions. Among them, a piece of stone rolled towards the distance, rolling to the foot of a clown-like boot. Bang! The clown-like boot violently lifted up the foot, crushing the stone that rolled to his foot. Following the crushing of the stone, an indescribable evil aura spread out from the owner of the foot. The person who came was the leader of the Phantom Lord, Joseph. Lifting his gloomy skeleton-like face, Joseph gloomily looked at the scene in front of him. He saw that the large building that should have stood there had long disappeared and was replaced by ruins. Rubble from the walls were piled up everywhere in the ruins. Broken pillars were lying crookedly on the bodies of the people buried under the rubble. Flames burned in every corner of the ruins, and a burnt smell filled the air. Seeing the guild building, which was still intact an hour ago, turn into a pile of rubble right before his eyes, the fury and murderous intent in Joseph's heart uncontrollably surged, causing the ink-black and evil magic energy within his body to continuously surge, bringing about an evil aura that sent chills down one's spine. There was only one person here, Joseph. To be precise, Joseph was the only one who maintained a complete consciousness and was unscathed. Looking at the magic shooters who were lying in the corners, buried under rubble or crushed by pillars, Joseph's anger and murderous intent became more and more violent. He didn't know if they were dead or alive, and the magic shooters who should have belonged to the Phantom Lord became more and more violent. Of course, even though Joseph was the guild leader of the Phantom Lord, he wasn't the kind of guild leader who would take pity on his subordinates and sympathize with them. For Joseph, as long as he could ensure the absolute ruling position of the Phantom Lord, and not reduce the overall strength of the Phantom Lord, then he would not feel any heartache about the deaths of his subordinates. The real reason why Joseph was so angry and couldn't help but squander his killing intent was that he had only been away for a short hour, and in the end, his own guild had been reduced to ruins. Who is it? Who had the guts and ability to do this? What about Gadjalu, Aaliyah, Julian, Bunnyball, and Saul? Could it be that the person who came was a powerful enemy of the Phantom Lord? Who had the ability to destroy the elites of the Phantom Lord? Makarov? No. Impossible. If it was Makarov, then the Phantom Lord, who had already prepared the means to deal with Makarov, would not have become like this. With incomprehensible doubts, frenzied anger and murderous intent, Joseph lifted his feet and walked into the ruined Phantom Lord. He came to the middle of what was supposed to be the hall. There were only 5 people lying here. They were the so-called elites of the Phantom Lord, in Joseph's mind Gadjaloo, and the 4 elements. However, at this moment, not only were these so-called elites of the Phantom Lord covered in wounds, but they were all on the verge of death. Especially Gadjaloo. The injuries on his body were so severe that it was terrifying. If he was not treated, he might even die. In this regard, Joseph did not have any pity in his heart. There was only crazy anger and murderous intent. Padash! At this moment, a charred hand reached out from the side and grabbed Joseph's foot. Joseph subconsciously lowered his head and looked at his feet. There, Aliyah, who had unsealed the seal on her eyes, propped up a pair of eyes that seemed to be bleeding due to excessive use of magic power. She weakly and with great difficulty spat out a word. This word made the anger and murderous intent in Joseph's heart burst out instantly. Fairy tale. Not long after, Joseph's roar, accompanied by a dark evil magic power, surged into the sky. Joseph did not know. After the fairy tale guild was destroyed, many people in the fairy tale guild were like him, roaring the Phantom Lord in their hearts. On the other side, when Noah returned to the fairy tale, once again, a beautiful figure rushed out and hugged Noah. Big brother Noah. Lisanna. Noah knew who the person in his arms was the moment he heard her address him. He patted her on the back and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What's wrong? Why did you suddenly rush over like this? You're still talking about it. Lisanna raised her head and glared at Noah. Soon after, she seemed to have thought of something, and her slender hands began to caress Noah's body. How are you? Are you hurt anywhere? Let me see. I'm not hurt. Noah hurriedly grabbed Lisanna's hand that was groping his body, knocked her on the head, and said in annoyance, Don't worry about it. Don't make a fuss. People who don't know will think that I went to fight with someone. Hearing Noah's words, not to mention Lisanna, everyone in the guild laughed bitterly. Didn't you go out to fight with someone? It's good that you're fine. Mira also walked out of the guild with a confused smile on her face. The guild has been destroyed. If even you, Noah, are injured, then we really don't know what to do. Mira is right. Alesha also came out and said with a serious expression, As long as you're fine, the guild can be rebuilt at any time. The guild leader's judgment is correct, so don't do anything rash in the future. Upon hearing this, Noah lifted his head, only to discover that the members of the guild had all come out of the guild with heavy expressions on their faces. Seeing the confusion on Myra's face, the worry on Lisanna's face, Alesha's serious expression, and the solemn expressions of the guild members, Noah sighed inwardly. It seemed that the destruction of the guild didn't just affect him, but also his companions. Unlike the Phantom Lord, the members of Fairy Tale had a strong sense of belonging to the guild and treated it as their spiritual support. Now that their spiritual support was destroyed, it was easy to imagine how depressed they were. Everyone, don't look as if something has left you forever. Pull yourself together. Noah said loudly as he gently pushed Lisanna away from his embrace. It's just a building. Although this building was built by the first president, even if it's destroyed, it doesn't mean that Fairy Tale is also destroyed. Everyone can just rebuild another one. Don't forget we're Fairy Tale. If those bastards who destroyed our guild see us like this, they'll be so happy that they won't be able to speak. Noah's voice reverberated in the surroundings and entered everyone's ears. We should let those bastards see our strength, not our weakness. So, everyone pull yourself together and rebuild Fairy Tale with me. Noah's words seemed to sweep away the darkness in everyone's hearts, causing them to feel a surge of hot blood. Oh! In the next moment, the cheers belonging to Fairy Tale once again resounded through the air. Seeing this scene, Noah suddenly smiled. Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha all wore gentle expressions as they looked at Noah with pride in their hearts. Even Makarov, who was quietly watching from afar. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.